During this time, if we fail to endure, then tomorrow, standing here, I fear it will be none other than the esteemed sorcerer demon king himself. The prophet gently joked, while Chaos sat down, seemingly deep in thought. So, Marshal, what should we do now? Those damned rebels have landed, and I fear that the entire area from the second defensive line onward is now under their control. From the eastern corner, a skeleton towering 3 meters rose to its feet, ghostly flames blazing in its eye sockets. Its terrifying face sent chills down the spine, and the bone blade it wielded emitted a cold gleam, lowering the surrounding temperature by several degrees. At the same time, another similarly massive creature stood up. This one had a fearsome appearance, wielding a long sword that, though ordinary in shape, constantly radiated a fiery glow, as if it were made of fire itself, eternally burning. Indeed, I fear even the forest has now fallen into their hands. In my opinion, let's take a few elites and, while they haven't secured their foothold, strike directly at their camp tonight. The speaker was a minotaur, a humanoid bull standing upright, with a large ring pierced through its nose and a massive hexagonal pillar slung over its shoulder. "Old bull, don't interfere," another minotaur beside him glanced at him, though this one carried an enormous battle axe on his shoulder. "That's right, let's follow the strategist's plan," a beautiful little dragon chimed in. The silent magician noticed everyone's eyes on him and did not say much. He stepped aside, revealing a massive map hanging on the wall, behind him. Using his command staff, he pointed to a dense forest on the lower path of the map and said, "The enemy surely has numerous arrangements in the forest. Our first step is to strike them hard before they finish their preparations. Therefore, I am assigning the Dark Mage, Chaos Knight, Apocalypse Envoy, Dragon Fairy, and Shadow Witch's generals to form a special operations team. They will carry the newly developed mist of strategy and conduct reconnaissance in the wilderness." Immediately, 5 figures stepped forward. "Understood," they responded. "The second step," he continued, "is to draw the enemy's attention to the lower path. Once this is achieved, I order Bone Skull King to lead the main army to attack the upper path, aiming to drive the enemy out of the Yangtze River and blockade the riverbank. Simultaneously, Phantom Spearhead and Lightning Wraith will lead troops to secure the divine talismans in the wilderness of the upper path, preventing enemy ambushes from this area." 3 figures emerged, accepted their orders silently, and retreated. The third step involves gathering the Hungry Ghost, Illusionist, Fire Gunner Dwarf, Night Star Wanderer, and Nature God generals. Once the 2 female generals recover from their injuries, they will proceed to the Celestial Emperor mountain range to search for the ancient barbaric beast, Rakshasa, and seek its assistance. If necessary, they may use force to subdue it. Under the meticulous arrangements of the silent magician, the royalist faction carried out their defensive strategy in an orderly manner, waiting for the right moment to deliver a fatal blow to the rebels. Deep within a small mountain in the Celestial Emperor mountain range, there was a hidden cave. The entrance was concealed by jagged rocks, making it nearly impossible to detect unless closely observed. Inside the cave, a young man dressed in white lay on a stone slab. Beside him was a little girl clad in silver armor, about 5 or 6 years old. The armor made her look like a lively little angel, emitting a continuous silver glow. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she had been crying. These two were none other than Kevin Schuyler and Little Nyo, who had disappeared. Earlier, Little Nyo had used a secret technique to bring Kevin Schuyler out of his father's secret realm before fleeing to this location. Kevin Schuyler had been struck by 7 light blades from a summoner 2 realms higher than him. Fortunately, his absolute defense protected his physical body, otherwise, even with 9 lives, he would have met the king of the underworld. Although his body appeared fine on the surface, internally, it was in chaos. His organs were severely damaged, with heavy internal bleeding. Despite lacking meridians, his energy vortexes had been distorted, and the originally oval-shaped vortexes were shattered. Luckily, 2 violet light spheres in his dantian emitted a deep purple glow that circulated through his bloodstream, rapidly healing his body. These mysterious violet light spheres seemed extraordinary. No matter how severe the injuries, they were quickly repaired under the nourishment of the purple light. The bleeding had stopped, the vortexes had returned to their original state, and the only remaining issue was the recovery of his vitality. Little Meow had cried herself into exhaustion, quietly leaning against Kevin Schuyler's side, clearly fast asleep. As for Kevin Schuyler's divine sense, it was far from idle. The stream of information transmitted from those two characters recorded a top-secret combat skill, instantaneous movement. Kevin Schuyler was baffled. What exactly was happening? Could those two characters actually be a book, containing vast amounts of information, recording various secret techniques and combat methods? But why not give it all to him at once? Never mind, for now, let's talk about this instantaneous movement. The special connection between those silhouettes, even with Kevin Schuyler's 200 IQ, took an entire day to realize it was a method of utilizing energy. It seemed that his future combat techniques would be inseparable from energy. The principle was as follows: to merge oneself into the void, becoming an invisible existence like a magnetic field, then using divine sense to perceive the fluctuations of heaven and earth, instantly moving oneself to the sensed location. What was called instantaneous was essentially the speed of the electromagnetic field, which was the speed of light, the ultimate speed of the world, hence the name instantaneous movement. This skill was divided into 9 levels, each upgrade symbolizing the elevation of the technique. Moreover, this skill required minimal Chi energy consumption, making it very practical. Once mastered, it would be incredibly advantageous. Kevin Schuyler silently activated the vortex in his head. After becoming accustomed to manipulating the vortex, he realized that the vortex in his head might be the leader controlling all the vortices in his body, so he named it Heaven Controller. The Heaven Controller spun rapidly, sensing the void, allowing him to become part of it. Kevin Schuyler imagined himself sinking slowly to the bottom of the ocean, a peculiar sensation of void appearing. With Kevin Schuyler's intelligence, understanding these concepts was quite easy. Heaven only knew what connection he had with the divine to be granted such a high starting point. However, at this moment, Kevin Schuyler was completely unaware. He believed that everyone could do this, that simply observing once would allow them to remember and even comprehend. He clearly felt that he had become part of the void because the Heaven Controller could no longer sense his existence. Then, he began sensing his surroundings. At the cave entrance, gusts of wind blew in. Kevin Schuyler focused his divine sense, adjusted his direction, and the void at the cave entrance seemed to distort, then suddenly returned to normal, then distorted again, and returned to normal, repeating this cycle many times. Suddenly, Kevin Schuyler shouted, "Ah!" The little girl was startled awake, thinking an enemy had attacked, and hurriedly lunged toward Kevin Schuyler. But at that precise moment, something strange happened. Kevin Schuyler's body flickered like a static-filled television screen and then vanished. The little girl lunged into empty air. "Ah!" A scream even sharper than Kevin Schuyler's shout rang out, nearly deafening him. Moreover, the scream showed no sign of stopping. The little girl clasped her hands tightly to her chest, tilted her head back, and continued screaming. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds passed. Kevin Schuyler couldn't take it anymore and lightly patted her. "Hey, could you stop for a moment?" The little girl immediately stopped screaming, turned around, saw Kevin Schuyler, and then resumed screaming. Kevin Schuyler was speechless. He covered the little girl's mouth with one hand, wrapped his other arm around her waist, and lifted her onto the stone platform. "Promise me you won't scream again." The little girl hesitated for a moment, as if confirming something, then nodded repeatedly. As Kevin Schuyler released his hand, the little girl gasped for air. "Kevin Schuyler. Brother Tion, how did you suddenly disappear?" Kevin Schuyler shook his head, thinking carefully. Clearly, he hadn't achieved his goal earlier. After teleporting, there was still some distance to the cave entrance. Moreover, upon reappearing, he felt a momentary dizziness. He wasn't sure if it was due to void manifestation or the girl's scream. However, Kevin Schuyler was well aware that while he had learned how to use it, mastery was another matter. Even a genius couldn't perfect it instantly. Despite his 200 IQ enabling him to grasp the first level of teleportation quickly, achieving proficiency was still far off. Tugging on the little girl's braids, Kevin Schuyler snapped back to reality, staring at her with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Little girl, so you're the daughter of the immortal old man. How many more secrets are you hiding from me? You'd better spill them yourself. Chapter 19, The Emperor's Mount. Hey, little girl. Quickly tell me, just how many secrets are you still hiding from me? Kevin Schuyler tugged hard on her 2 braids, one hand relentlessly tickling the little girl's waist. She squirmed uncontrollably on the stone platform as if having a fit, her face, once streaked with tears, now lit up with laughter. Stop tickling me, Kevin Schuyler. Brother Tion, I'll tell you everything. First, tell me your name. At this point, the little girl returned to her sorrowful expression, muttering softly, I don't have a name. My father disappeared before I was born. By the time I gained consciousness, I was already this big. Moreover, at the very beginning, I was in the palm of that statue's hand. After some investigation, Kevin Schuyler finally learned that when the little girl was born, she had a jade pendant beside her. This pendant contained a wealth of information about the immortal Heavenly Emperor during his lifetime. As soon as the little girl was born, the jade pendant automatically transported her to Qilin City. It was an old man who instructed her to enter the secret realm through the Heavenly Emperor Mountain Gate in the middle of the Yangtze River on the day the city fell. However, unexpectedly, she encountered a wandering vagrant, him. The jade pendant also held even more abundant information, including details about the eldest daughter of the immortal Heavenly Emperor, who was the woman in white. There was also a specific instruction from the old man: under no circumstances was she to reveal her identity unless the immortal domain had been unified, otherwise, her identity must remain forever hidden. Where did that old man go? Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but wonder aloud. The little girl pouted, Don't insult my father. Kevin Schuyler was speechless, thinking to himself, where on earth did that old man go? Could he have died? Why was the little girl sent out from the beginning instead of staying in the secret realm to meet her elder sister? Why couldn't she reveal her identity to rally the immortal clan to destroy the witch demon king? Too many questions. At this point, Kevin Schuyler wanted to take out the jade pendant to examine it, but this time, the little girl absolutely refused to let him. Looking into her gem-like eyes, Kevin Schuyler understood that he had gained her full trust, otherwise, he wouldn't have learned all of this. So, your name really is Little Immortal Sister? The little girl lowered her head, her cheeks flushed, and softly replied, Yes. That old man is truly hopeless, he couldn't even come up with a decent name, Kevin Schuyler teased. Seeing that the little girl was about to erupt in anger, he quickly restrained her. And your elder sister? Don't tell me she's called Little Immortal Maiden? Little sister widened her eyes in astonishment. How do you know? Old man, have you even finished elementary school? Giving your 2 daughters names like that, how are they supposed to face the world? By the way, what's that old man's name? Seeing Kevin Schuyler still up to his usual antics, little sister was at her wit's end and reluctantly replied, Immortal brother. Your whole family is truly unique. I bet your grandfather didn't finish elementary school either. Little sister erupted with anger. Strangely enough, after being cleansed by holy light, little sister's body seemed to brim with mysterious energy. Though she couldn't do much to Kevin Schuyler, she was able to restrain him. Extending her arms, she grabbed Kevin Schuyler tightly. Then, lifting her hands, Kevin Schuyler was hoisted into the air. Hey, little sister, I'm still injured. Let me down. That's for laughing at me, still laughing? I won't laugh anymore, never again. Boom, Kevin Schuyler face-planted onto the ground. An hour later, little sister looked at Kevin Schuyler with pleading eyes. His injuries had completely healed, which was quite strange. Using a secret healing method, Kevin Schuyler recovered about 70 to 80%. What benefit do I get for helping you? Kevin Schuyler's eyes gleamed with cunning as he looked at little Muoy like admiring a beauty. Seeing little Muoy remain silent for a long while, Kevin Schuyler picked up the bowl of medicine she had prepared and drank it all in one go. When the time comes, when I grow up, I'll marry you. Spurt. The medicine he had just drunk sprayed out completely. Kevin Schuyler nearly choked to death. Cough, cough. Kevin Schuyler coughed violently, waving his hand. All right, I'll help you. You don't need to marry me in the future. Kevin Schuyler broke into a cold sweat as he reluctantly agreed to help little sister resolve the internal rebellion of the immortal clan. However, there were a few doubts. First, with Kevin Schuyler's current strength, even 10 Kevin Schuylers combined wouldn't stand a chance against a summoner. Their magic had no cooldown time, limitless mana, and spells that rained down like a storm. In such a situation, 1 Kevin Schuyler or 10 would make no difference. But little sister assured him not to worry. She claimed to have a secret technique. While her combat ability was weak, she possessed the forbidden arts of the immortal Heavenly Emperor, which could temporarily amplify his strength significantly. Combined with his sharp intellect, success was certain. Yet, the secret technique required time to prepare and came with severe side effects. Little sister, however, mischievously avoided explaining these to Kevin Schuyler. Second, was he supposed to go alone? Under the command of the Sorcerer King stood countless powerful warriors and elite troops. No matter how skilled he was, how could he possibly contend with such an overwhelming force? Little sister patted her chest confidently, saying, No problem, I have a plan. Seeing her stammering without elaborating, Kevin Schuyler asked, What plan? Little sister rolled her eyes, clearly displeased. Dadak City, Royal Council Hall. Report. Strategist, the 5 generals stationed in the outskirts have successfully cleared the enemy strongholds and inflicted heavy injuries on several enemy commanders. However, the enemy reinforcements arrived too quickly. The 5 generals are now surrounded and in grave danger. What? The seer shouted angrily. Seer, please remain calm. The enemy possesses the Abyss Lord, who can summon reinforcements instantly. I had already anticipated this. The seer regained composure, casting a look of utmost trust at the silent magician beside him. Before their deployment, I equipped the 5 generals with return to city scrolls. I believe they'll be able to retreat shortly. Good. The seer nodded in relief. If the 5 generals were to perish, the royalist faction would be doomed. Report. The Sorcerer King is personally leading his army. Under his command are 7 elite generals, the Summoner, Queen of Agony, Sorcerer, Lord of the Underworld, Blood Demon, Damian Blackwell, and the Demon Warlock. They are advancing straight toward the second-tier city on the central line, Spirit City. The enemy is advancing aggressively. Strategist, do you have a plan? The silent magician bowed respectfully. Seer, rest assured, I have a strategy. However, what? Sir, the Spirit City can either be defended or abandoned. If we choose to defend it, we may have to pay a heavy price in casualties. Moreover, I believe the Lich King is personally overseeing this battle. This is undoubtedly just the first wave of attacks. Even if we manage to hold the city, there will surely be another assault. The seer nodded. Issue the command, order the Spirit City Lord, the Colossal Battle General, to lead the generals under the command of the Moon Goddess Knight, the Moon Goddess Priestess, and the Windwalker. Do your best to defend the city, but under no circumstances should you fight to the death. If the city cannot be held, retreat to Dark City and await further orders. The second-line city of the Royalist faction, Spirit City. What? Retreat? City Lord, do you know how many spirits reside in this city? They make up 1/10 of the entire Spirit clan. And now you're telling us to abandon the city and flee? A female spirit windwalker, gripping a magical bow, her exceptionally ample chest heaving, roared at the Spirit City Lord, the colossal battle general. Beside her, the Moon Goddess Priestess and the Moon Goddess Knight remained silent. The colossal battle general's eyes were bloodshot, his teeth clenched, and his fists tightened, emitting terrifying cracking sounds. If you want to leave, then go ahead. I would rather die than abandon this city. The Windwalker left behind a trail of hot tears as she leaped from the city walls, raising her fragile magical bow and continuing to fight. Below the walls, corpses were piled high, and countless undying elven clans clashed with the Lich King's massive army. Without hesitation, the Windwalker pulled her bowstring taut, aiming at the Lich King's banner fluttering in the distance, and unleashed a heaven-shaking arrow. No! The Moon Goddess Knight and Moon Goddess Priestess tried to leap down after her, but the colossal battle general held them back. Issue the order, full retreat. Anyone who disobeys will be executed on the spot. The command was silent, the military order merciless. The battlefield, still shrouded in smoke and fire, echoed with cries of anguish. Tens of thousands of bodies lay cold beneath the city walls, while some soldiers, having lost their sanity, continued their charge. Dark clouds covered the sky, and moonlight pierced through the gaps, illuminating Spirit City. Everything seemed eerily quiet. The city gates closed, and the remaining soldiers began their retreat, turning their backs on the city that had nurtured them, moving further and further away. No one spoke, no one raised their heads. Even the carriages moved with an unusual stillness, and the banners no longer fluttered. What has happened to the world? What has happened to the heavens? Are they weeping? Are those the tears of the divine, or the blood-stained tears of the goddess? Is it the countless lives lost or the outbreak of brutal war that has caused even our celestial beings to weep? Dadak City, thousands of magical defense towers were scattered across the city gates, powerful magical energy enveloped the entire fortress, and a massive magical barrier protected the city. The Celestial Emperor mountain range, a mysterious and strange land, was engulfed in a raging battle. 5 members of the Royal Guardian faction's combat squad, Shadow Soul, Illusionary Assassin, Dwarf Marksman, Dark Wanderer, and Heavenborn Fong, were fiercely fighting against 5 generals of the rebel faction who had set up an ambush here: Sand King, Cannibal Mage, Spider Queen, Abyssal Assassin, and Necromancer. The battle was intense, under the moonlight that obscured the sky, as the earth quaked and mountains trembled. Bursts of radiant magic occasionally illuminated the heavens, making the land appear even more otherworldly. They're fighting. The young girl's eyes sparkled as she stared intently at the 10 powerful figures in the distance. We must quickly get to the altar and find your father's divine beast. Then, you can perform the purification ritual for me. With your father's divine beast aiding us, I'm sure our chances of victory will be much greater. Alright, the young girl clutched tightly onto Kevin Schuyler's coat. Though no longer afraid, she had grown accustomed to holding on to him. Hugging Heavenborn Fong, she gently circled around the battlefield, heading toward the mysterious altar in the distance. In a clearing between 2 mountains, peculiar magical formations were densely packed together. Towering magical stone pillars stood solemnly, and faintly, a grand platform could be seen erected in the center. Though the platform wasn't tall, it exuded a majestic aura, occupying a vast area. From its peak came the faint sound of a ferocious beast's roar. Kevin Schuyler and the young girl cautiously approached. The girl hurriedly pulled Kevin Schuyler up onto the platform. Though not tall, the platform's overwhelming presence was unsettling, and the strange stone pillars and magical formations surrounding it made their hair stand on end. Within moments, they reached the platform. At its center was a mysterious totem etched onto the ground, seemingly just a drawing. Surrounding it were various runes. The young girl knelt on both knees, formed hand seals with her hands, and muttered under her breath. The totem on the ground gradually became clearer, and the runes around it began to glow. The totem resembled the beast ridden by the woman in white they had seen before, but the aura of menace and power it emitted was incomparable. The totem opened its blood-red maw. Though not yet revived, its faint roars echoed ominously. The light of the surrounding runes grew increasingly intense, slowly lifting off the platform and rising into the air. The totem followed, ascending into the sky. The young girl suddenly stood, her hands rapidly forming seals as she shouted, "Celestial Qilin, appear!" A deafening roar shook the heavens and nearly caused Kevin Schuyler to fall from the platform. Though the divine beast hovered hundreds of meters above the ground, the trees near the altar were blown over by the fierce winds. Violent gales swept across the altar's surroundings. The 10 figures battling in the distance simultaneously turned their gaze toward the commotion. The totem in the air gradually transformed into a flesh and blood entity. The massive form of the divine beast emerged, a colossal Qilin, over 100 meters long and more than 30 meters tall, materialized. "This is bad. Someone has awakened the Celestial Emperor's divine beast, retreat immediately." 10 figures revealed expressions of astonishment, 5 of them quickly departed, while the remaining 5 exchanged glances. One attempted to rush toward the altar, but another stopped him. "The divine beast is resurrecting. It will likely fly away directly. Our arrival would be pointless, we should return to Didac instead." "Agreed." The 5 figures simultaneously formed hand seals. A formation suddenly appeared around them, glowing brightly. Within seconds, the 5 vanished. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but collapse to the ground as the overwhelming pressure of the divine beast permeated the heavens and earth. Its earth-shaking roar dispersed the dark clouds in the sky, allowing the moonlight to shine directly upon the divine beast. The creature appeared even more majestic, its massive Qilin body shimmering with silver light, seemingly absorbing the moon's essence. It truly resembled a celestial being descending to the mortal realm, commanding all creatures to bow in reverence. Fierce beasts within tens of thousands of miles were drawn to the scene, their gazes all fixed upon this moment. 1,000 miles away, at the throne of the Witch King, atop a platform 10 times higher than the one before, stood a handsome young man with cold eyes. A terrifying red light pierced through the void as he gazed toward the altar. The intense magical fluctuations from his presence directly shattered a small hill beneath the high platform. The summoner beside him, feeling the oppressive aura, couldn't help but take a deep breath. Finally, the young man retracted his gaze. "Sigh, yet another troublesome matter," he muttered. In his hand, he held a glowing green orb. Within it, a faint figure could be seen. Upon closer inspection, it was the white-robed woman from before, the immortal maiden. She appeared to be in a deep slumber, her eyes closed, her body relaxed, and her face serene, as if she were lost in a beautiful dream. Back at the immortal sacrificial grounds, a sudden burst of radiance enveloped the area. The Qilin's body began to shrink continuously until it was only about 5 meters long and 3 meters tall. With a leap, it landed on the ground. Xiaonyao, seeing what looked like her pet, ran over excitedly. In truth, it really was her pet. Kevin Schuyler followed closely behind. At this point, the Qilin no longer exuded its oppressive aura, allowing the two to approach more easily. The divine beast, intelligent as it was, assessed Kevin Schuyler and, sensing no threat, didn't pay him much mind. Kevin Schuyler moved closer to observe. Though the Qilin's body had shrunk, its imposing presence remained unchanged. Its black scales gleamed, its head adorned with a purple mane, and its 5 sharp claws hidden within its powerful limbs. Its eerie eyes bore a slight resemblance to Xiaonyou's, though its pupils were slit like those of a wild beast. When it opened its mouth, razor-sharp, hook-shaped teeth, tens of centimeters long, were revealed, along with bursts of dark mist exuding from within, clearly imbued with killing intent. Its tail was even stranger, resembling a blazing flame. If not for his fear, Kevin Schuyler would have eagerly studied and touched the creature. However, Xiaonyou clearly didn't give him the chance. With a wave of her small hand, Kevin Schuyler was lifted into the air. The two of them climbed onto the Qilin's back. Xiaonyou raised her hands excitedly and cheered, "Let's go, let's find the demon warrior." #### Chapter 20 Demon Warrior. In a massive abyss of the Tianhuang mountain range, thick fog blanketed the entire chasm, making it impossible to see what lay within from above. Occasionally, dazzling beams of light shot out from the abyss, their brilliance surpassing even the sun in the sky. Moreover, a pervasive killing intent spread with each flash, instilling a sense of imperial dread in the surrounding creatures. At the entrance of this abyss, a Chilan beast, about 5 meters long and 3 meters tall, carried 2 individuals into this land of death. These were Kevin Schuyler and Xiaonyou. Standing on the Chilan's back, Kevin Schuyler observed the surroundings, while Xiaonyou mischievously tugged at the Chilan's mane, steering it left and right as it swiftly flew forward through the air. The abyss was fraught with perilous terrain. Without the ability to fly, traversing it would be nearly impossible. Below lay treacherous swamps, remnants of deadly formations, and even the occasional sight of massive demonic beasts, belching smoke and roaring incessantly. The Chilan soared through the air, runic patterns glowing beneath its feet as a spell formation propelled it at incredible speed. Before long, they reached a basin, where a towering cliff nearly 1,000 meters high loomed ahead. At the base of the cliff lay a sacrificial-like formation, and at its center was a pitch-black pool of water. Every so often, the water erupted violently, faintly revealing the presence of an ancient beast slumbering beneath its surface. Its deep snores reverberated through the heavens and earth. Roar! A deafening roar shattered the stones on the ground, its imperial might shaking the land and sending nearby creatures fleeing in terror. Kevin Schuyler furrowed his brows in silence. If this old man's mount was already this strong, then what level of power did the old man himself possess? As the roar echoed, a low, guttural response followed, grr. The water in the pool exploded entirely, and a colossal figure emerged. At first, Kevin Schuyler mistook the head rising from the abyss for that of an octopus. Slowly, the giant rose from the water. Boom! Each step it took caused the ground to tremble. Finally, with great difficulty, the giant fully emerged from the small pool. Runes materialized around it, encircling the figure. The giant's body was entirely made of stone, even its eyes were enormous agate-like crystals. Could this be the legendary Stone King? Was this the final boss of the Undying Domain? The demon warrior who terrified countless beast clans? Truly majestic. Demon warrior uncle, it's me. Xiaonyou. Xiaonyou called out cheerfully, showing no fear of the giant and instead displaying familiarity. Uncle? Kevin Schuyler was stunned. Could it be that the undying old man had some kind of secret relationship with this stone figure? I thought the immortal old man himself had come, but it turns out to be you, little girl. Though he was speaking, Kevin Schuyler felt as if thunder was crashing. The person's voice rumbled like rolling storms in the sky, wave after wave. Uncle, father said. I know, that old man mentioned it to me last time. Before the little girl could finish speaking, the stone man interrupted, clearly aware of her stuttering. Inuyasha, why are you flying so high? If you want to fight, come down here and face me. The Stone King pointed a finger at the Chilan divine beast, his fingertip nearly touching the beast's nose. I have important matters to attend to. I don't have time to fight with you. The divine beast tilted its head. Inuyasha? This Chilan divine beast can talk, and it just called you Inuyasha? If you want the immortal shield, you'll have to defeat me first. The demon warrior shouted loudly toward the sky. Kevin Schuyler. Brother Tion, you must defeat this stone uncle. The little girl tugged at Kevin Schuyler. What? Fight this stone giant? Kevin Schuyler glanced at the giant below. Though he was in the air, he didn't doubt the strength of the giant beneath him. Anyone daring to challenge the Chilan divine beast couldn't possibly be weak. What are you afraid of? Kid, I'll help you. The Chilan divine beast roared, diving down. Away, Kevin Schuyler exclaimed softly, grabbing the heaven-born Fong. Clang! The heaven-born Fong was unsheathed, slicing through the air with the wind and slashing straight at the giant's head. The massive blade radiated a strange, eerie light, illuminating the entire sky and earth. Its speed was so astonishing that it left one in awe. Humph, the demon warrior snorted lightly. He raised his left hand without a care for Kevin Schuyler's blade strike. Instead, his attention was fixed on the charging Qilin divine beast below. Clearly, he dared not underestimate it. His left hand clenched into a fist, ready to counter the beast head-on. The two sharp horns on the Qilin divine beast's head aimed straight at the Stone King's chest, clearly intending to end the battle swiftly. Such recklessness showed their desperation. Boom! The Qilin divine beast's horns collided with the Stone King's fist. Neither side gained the upper hand. The Qilin divine beast appeared slightly dazed, while the Stone King visibly stepped back, his left hand trembling slightly. However, the blade that should have struck the Stone King's right hand was nowhere to be seen, and the young man wielding the blade had also vanished without a trace. Wind spear. On the giant's left arm, 3 massive blade strikes materialized, targeting the joint between the arm and the body. Who was Kevin Schuyler? A man with an IQ of 200. From the start, he had already discerned the strengths of this stone giant. With his current abilities, even striking 100 times wouldn't make a difference. Thus, when the Stone King was distracted by the Qilin divine beast earlier, Kevin had used teleportation to aim for the left arm alongside the beast. However, his mastery of teleportation was evidently insufficient, and he failed to move in time. As a result, he resorted to an ambush, attempting to render the already numbed arm of the giant even more useless. It was effective. The giant grew visibly angry, and his right hand swatted at Kevin Schuyler like a fly. Beep. Kevin tried to teleport again but failed, and the immense force sent him flying. Yet, he landed steadily on the back of the Qilin divine beast. Hey, divine beast, why don't you just grow larger and crush this stone giant underfoot? Kevin Schuyler mused, recalling how this Inuyasha-like beast had once been even larger than the Stone King. There is a formation here, no magic can be used. Moreover, this stone giant is immune to magic. Magic? Could it be that this current size is the true form of the divine beast, and what was seen before was only an illusion created by magic? Without overthinking, the young girl tightly gripped the mane of the Qilin with one hand, while the other clenched into a fist. Kevin Schuyler, big brother, keep going. Kevin Schuyler was utterly frustrated. His strength was clearly insufficient. Thinking of this, Kevin Schuyler gripped the heaven-born Feng tightly. I must defeat this stone giant. So what if my strength is lacking? From now on, I'll only challenge the strong. A surge of intense killing intent rose. Kevin Schuyler adjusted his combat power to its peak. Within his body, the Lin Bing battle spell rotated, channeling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. A golden sphere of light vibrated, radiating infinite brilliance. The Qilin divine beast charged forward once more. This time, the stone giant dared not block with its left hand but instead chose to dodge. This move was precisely within Kevin Schuyler's calculations. With a flash step, he appeared near the left arm. Frenzied slash. 18 consecutive blade strikes slashed through the same spot, the joint of the arm. The Stone King staggered backward, hurriedly swinging its right hand to counterattack. Unfortunately for it, Kevin Schuyler used another flash step, causing the Stone King to inadvertently strike its own arm. Ah! Even with a body made of stone, the Stone King roared in agony. It seemed the pain was very real. Roar! At the same time as the Stone King raged, the Qilin divine beast also erupted in fury. Its claws extended against the wind, growing longer, and struck heavily onto the Stone King's chest. The Stone King raised his right arm horizontally to block, and both were forced backward. Taking advantage of the moment, Kevin Schuyler targeted the previously slashed arm, unleashing a frenzied strike. Heavenborn Feng, with its immense power, resonated with the whirlpool within it, creating a synergy. An unprecedented killing intent radiated from Heavenborn Feng. Kevin Schuyler's hair stood on end, and his eyes emitted a violet glow as he swung the blade downward. In that instant, a sudden realization struck him. He comprehended the terrifying battle technique Heavenly Emperor's 9 slashes. Boom! The first slash came down. The Stone King raised his left arm, hoping to shield the injured area where a deep wound had already been etched. If the attack continued, even his stone body might not withstand it. Boom! The second slash landed with even greater momentum. The Stone King swung his right arm, seemingly crushing the void, enveloping all of heaven and earth within his palm. Kevin Schuyler gritted his teeth and stomped forcefully on the cliffside. The third slash. Boom! It struck the Stone King's right arm, but it seemed unshaken. A massive fist came hurtling toward Kevin Schuyler. His pupils contracted as he teleported just in time to evade, lightly stepping off the incoming fist and moving toward the left arm. The Stone King's eyes widened. As the fourth slash approached, the Stone King suddenly opened his mouth wide, inhaling with great force. Kevin Schuyler, suspended in midair, was pulled into the Stone King's mouth. Just as he was about to be swallowed, Kevin Schuyler decisively unleashed the fourth slash, striking inside the Stone King's mouth. The Stone King's head was forced upward from the blow, allowing Kevin Schuyler to narrowly escape death, colliding with the Stone King's chin. Boom! Kevin Schuyler's body had no idea how many bones were broken, but he paid no mind to it. Twisting his body, he leaped forward. Taking advantage of the Stone King's inability to adjust, he struck 5 consecutive slashes at the Stone King's right arm. Each slash was stronger and more terrifying than the last. The final slash shattered the void, illuminating the heavens and earth, severing the Stone King's entire right arm and half of his shoulder. At the same time, Kevin Schuyler was struck by the Stone King's palm, which sent him crashing into the ground. Everything happened in an instant. Kevin Schuyler's reaction speed was astonishingly fast. Although the Stone King possessed immense strength, he still suffered a significant loss in this exchange. Meanwhile, the third charge of the Qilin Divine Beast was already closing in. "I give up. I give up," the Stone King roared. "You broke my arm. How am I supposed to keep fighting?" Hearing the Stone King's surrender, the Qilin Divine Beast halted its attack. However, Kevin Schuyler was in terrible shape. Falling from a height of 30 meters and enduring 3 consecutive heavy blows nearly shattered all the bones in his body. He was in so much pain that he was on the verge of fainting. Yet, his willpower held firm, preventing him from losing consciousness. The violet energy sphere within his body spun wildly, a testament to his absolute defense. Kevin Schuyler struggled to his feet, his body covered in blood. His once white garments were now dyed red. Each heavy blow had shaken his spirit, causing his blood to surge uncontrollably. Taking a few deep breaths, he saw the Stone King surrender and finally felt a small wave of relief. "Kevin Schuyler, big brother." Little Nyo hurriedly called back the Qilin Divine Beast. With a wave of her hand, she brought Kevin Schuyler onto the Qilin Divine Beast's back. Closing her eyes, she extended both hands toward Kevin Schuyler and began chanting a healing spell. "Aren't we not supposed to use magic?" Kevin Schuyler asked softly. Only then did Little Nyo remember. She quickly carried Kevin Schuyler away from the battlefield. As they left, Inuyasha cast a glance back at the Stone King, who also met his gaze. The two exchanged a subtle nod and a smile, as if silently confirming something between them. 3 days later, Kevin Schuyler woke up, still lying on the same stone slab. Seeing Little Nyo's face filled with worry and concern, he smiled reassuringly. Feeling his body, he realized he had completely recovered. Kevin Schuyler widened his eyes in disbelief. Was it his body's abnormal resilience or Little Nyo's magic that was extraordinary? His bones had been shattered, yet in just 3 days, he was fully healed. The thought sent chills down his spine. Sitting up, his bones cracked audibly. "Kevin Schuyler, big brother, you're awake!" Little Nyo exclaimed. She rushed over to help him sit up. Kevin Schuyler gently tugged at her small braid and said, "I'm fine now. I could even go another round with the Stone King if needed." Hearing this, Little Nyo's face lit up with joy. Pointing at a small stone spirit nearby, she said, "It's all your fault. You're the one who hurt Kevin Schuyler, big brother, like this." Kevin Schuyler looked down at the stone slab in astonishment. A miniature version of a demon warrior? Ha 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 ha. Kevin Schuyler leaped down, no longer showing any signs of being injured. He grabbed the tiny stone figure, which was only the size of a regular cat. Ha 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 ha. Kevin Schuyler hugged the Stone King, kicking and tossing it around, throwing and smashing it. Ha 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 ha. Serves you right for being so arrogant. Now I'm the giant, and I'm going to have my fun with you. Oh. Your arm's healed already? The Stone King was utterly enraged. He, a ruler of his domain, was being treated like this? Where was his dignity? He was just about to explode in fury. All right, we should get moving now. The Chilean divine beast stepped in, and Kevin Schuyler immediately stopped his playful beating. Get moving? To where? The Elven city has fallen. The main forces of the rebels are in the middle lane. We need to head quickly to the second-tier city in the bottom lane, Bis City. Bis City? Bis City is a magical fortress protected by the heavily armed royalist faction. Its city lord is Marshal Tathiel, under the command of the immortal Celestial Emperor. He has 5 elite generals, the Arcane Duelist, the Crystal Seven Maidens, the Enchantress Sorceress, the Storm Elf, and the Frontier Cavalry Knight. Each of them is a magical powerhouse that dominates their respective regions. All right. Let's go. Roar. The mythical creature Chilean carried Kevin Schuyler, immortal Little Nyo, and the Stone King together toward the second-tier royalist city, Bis City. Along the way, the Stone King took out a mysterious shield. Immortal Little Nyo, with a serious expression, held the shield and said, "Brother Kevin Schuyler, I can temporarily raise you to an advanced mid-tier level, but the rest, you must be careful yourself." Kevin Schuyler leaned in, staring intently at the shield, which exuded a strange aura. Peculiar ancient runes seemed to cover its surface. The Stone King glanced over, his face contemplative as he observed Kevin Schuyler. Even Inuyasha, while flying, slightly tilted his head as if also watching Kevin Schuyler, sharing the same expression as the Stone King. Kevin Schuyler, of course, noticed none of this. He continued to gaze at the peculiar shield, his face thoughtful. Meanwhile, Bis City was already facing a massive threat. To specifically counter the mage regiment of Bis City, the Witch King had dispatched 5 fearsome generals, the Wolf King, the Corpse Demon, the Nightwalker Merman, the Butcher, and the Twilight Hunter. These were terrifying warriors, an absolute nightmare for the mages. The 5 generals led an army of 100,000, besieging the city. The battle had already begun. To minimize the consumption of the city's magic towers, the mage regiment within the city also led troops out to fight. Both sides clashed, and the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Hell! The Wolf King let out a roar and immediately transformed, summoning 2 fearsome ghost wolves. He himself turned into a massive Wolf King with purple fur, emanating an eerie glow, charging straight toward the Storm Elf and the army. Any soldiers who dared block his way were mercilessly flung aside. "Humph!" the Storm Elf shouted, his hands moving rapidly. In an instant, his entire body surged with electricity, as if the storm god had descended. He raised his right hand, and a bolt of lightning struck the Wolf King with incredible speed, making it impossible for the Wolf King to dodge. The once lightning-fast Wolf King suddenly slowed down, as though struck by lightning. The ground around him cracked like a spiderweb. The Storm Elf formed seals with his hands and unleashed another bolt of lightning toward the Wolf King. This bolt wrapped around the Wolf King like a tight rope, binding his neck and immobilizing him. The Wolf King was gradually being dragged toward the Storm Elf. The Storm Elf pulled hard with both hands, forming an electric phantom in front of him. This phantom resembled the Storm Elf, but was entirely composed of electricity. As the Wolf King was pulled closer, the phantom, like a streak of light, charged straight at him. Boom! The werewolf grimaced in pain, baring its teeth and rolling outside. 2 ghost wolves, oblivious to danger, charged at the Storm Elf. The Storm Elf split into an illusionary image, and the two smaller wolves vanished upon being struck. The werewolf roared furiously, shattering several nearby soldiers. Suddenly, its body began to grow visibly larger. An incomprehensible incantation echoed, and the now enlarged werewolf moved even faster. In the blink of an eye, it was beside the storm elf. The Black Emperor's staff? A divine staff that grants temporary immunity to magic? The storm elf was taken aback, but the werewolf had already closed in. Its massive claws tore through the air, mercilessly striking the storm elf. After releasing a final bolt of lightning, the storm elf was sent flying, carving a deep trench into the ground. Its chest bones were likely shattered. The werewolf, relentless, leapt high into the air and descended forcefully. Realizing magic was now useless, the storm elf immediately jumped, summoning a massive lightning bolt beneath its feet. It soared into the sky and retreated into the city, leaving behind only a trail of lightning that had ripped through the void. The werewolf dared not pursue further. Letting out an enraged roar, it charged into the chaotic battlefield. With every swipe of its claws, it claimed another life. In the wilderness, the hellhound and its companions were flying at full speed. At that moment, Kevin Schuyler, standing atop the creature, suddenly opened his eyes. A tangible purple light flickered, and the golden orb within his body visibly expanded, its hue becoming incredibly pure. However, Lin Bing and Tong Tian showed no changes. Kevin Schuyler stood up, channeling Tong Tian. Instantly, the surrounding energy was visibly drawn toward him with a wave of his hand. I can clearly feel myself growing stronger, but it doesn't seem as powerful as you described. I still haven't reached the mid-high rank, Kevin Schuyler said, looking at the young girl with a puzzled expression. The Stone King, meanwhile, was observing Kevin Schuyler in astonishment. By all logic, he should have reached the mid-high rank. Why hadn't he? Moreover, why did it seem like nothing had fundamentally changed? Could it be that his cultivation method was flawed? Could he still defeat the Witch King next? A deep sense of worry crossed the Stone King's face, and he let out a sigh. Hearing this sigh, the hellhound shuddered and accelerated even further. The young girl, too, was visibly confused. It turned out that the shield was the legendary immortal shield, created by the immortal emperor using a powerful secret technique to convert a portion of his energy into a more versatile form. Theoretically, such an immense amount of energy could directly elevate someone to the mid-high rank. While their spiritual cultivation might lag behind, preventing them from unleashing their full combat potential, their raw power would still reach that level. However, the side effects were severe, and the price to pay was immense. Originally, it was meant for the young girl, but she had secretly insisted that Kevin Schuyler use it instead. The demon warrior had no choice but to comply. Yet why hadn't Kevin Schuyler advanced to that stage? Could he still use his current sub-mid-rank strength to protect the young girl? Returning to the battlefield, other mages, when faced with opponents wielding the Black Emperor staff, suffered significant disadvantages. Known as the Fire Maiden, the combative magic sorceress, she possessed a fiery figure, her hair like a stormy whirlwind, adding to her allure. Her delicate features, seductive red lips, and full, round chest strained against her thin magical cloak. Her long, pale legs peeked out from beneath the mage's robe. Each time she cast a spell, she turned a patch of land into ashes. The massive fire pillar she summoned descended from the heavens, engulfing the soul-devourer demon. Her entire body was enveloped in flames, and with every spell cast, the flames grew fiercer. Finally, she formed a seal with her hands, spun around, and unleashed a purple lightning bolt. This lightning was even more terrifying than the storm spirit's bolts, collapsing the void and striking the soul-devourer demon. Just as the demon was about to be vanquished, it suddenly spread its hands, its entire body turning pitch black. A dense dark aura radiated from within, distorting the surrounding space. The purple lightning struck it without any effect, and the fire pillar could no longer contain it. It leaped forward, its sharp black claws tearing through the flames on the Fire Maiden's body. As she tried to escape, her body suddenly became as heavy as Mount Tai, making movement difficult. The soul devourer demon lunged with its claws, aiming to rip through the flames. The fire maiden quickly formed a seal with her hands, pulling out a white scroll and pressing it down with force. A massive rune appeared, enveloping her. Just before the demon's black claws could touch her alluring figure, the rune flashed, and the fire maiden vanished without a trace. The Star Maiden, Enchantress, and Bat Knight had nearly defeated their enemies, but the foe suddenly grew larger, becoming immune to magic, and quickly charged forward, gravely injuring them, forcing all three to retreat. While the Bat Knight used a scroll to escape, the Butcher unexpectedly hooked him with his deadly hook. If not for the soldiers risking their lives to rescue him, he would have perished on the battlefield. The Royalist faction suffered a crushing defeat, rivers of blood flowed, and corpses littered the ground. The werewolves pressed their advantage, almost breaching the city. Fortunately, the fearsome magic defense tower temporarily repelled the werewolves. However, seeing the hunter tide mobilizing troops and reorganizing their ranks, it was clear they would soon launch a full-scale assault to capture the city. While the magic defense tower was powerful, it couldn't attack on a wide scale. If tens of thousands of troops stormed the city, it was feared the city would fall within a day. Crisis for the magic defense tower. Crisis for the Royalist faction. Crisis for the Undead clan. Crisis for humanity. Crisis for the island. Boom. The massive siege engine hurled a terrifying bomb. No matter how solid the defenses were, they trembled slightly. Tens of thousands of soldiers beneath the city immediately regrouped, their eyes gleaming with excitement as they watched the frightened defenders above. The hunter tide raised their massive anchor high and roared, "Charge!" Aru! The werewolves raised their heads and howled, transforming into colossal wolf forms that charged at the city gates, leading the army. The soul devourer demon raised its hands, its body instantly turning black, urging the troops forward. The butcher, wielding his deadly hook, screamed wildly. Disgusting flames of plague emanated from him, killing anyone who touched them. The shadow sea merman let out strange gurgling sounds, leaping into the night and vanishing. Only ripples spread in the air, and anyone who approached these ripples was swiftly slaughtered. The fortress trembled, teetering on the brink of collapse. The marshal and his soldiers raised their arms high, shouting oaths to live and die alongside the stronghold. The remaining soldiers let out one final roar, a sound rising from the depths of their souls, part lament of warriors, part the final howling of a cold wind. Marshal Tathnir tore apart the retreat order in his hands, raised his stone axe high, and charged forward on horseback straight toward the city gates. Fire Maiden, Star Maiden, Tempest Soul, and Enchantress, though their magical energy was depleted and their bodies utterly exhausted, unleashed a terrifying surge of combat power in this critical moment. Each soldier was resolute in their determination to fight to the death. Marshal Tathnir, astride his warhorse with blazing eyes, wielded his axe like a tempest, cutting through the enemy ranks. At the city gates, the two armies clashed with unrelenting ferocity, each combatant resolved to deliver a blow even if it meant their own demise. Blood seemed cheap in this moment, and life itself felt inconsequential. Countless lives roared their defiance, countless streams of blood flowed freely. Though it was midday, the sunlight above appeared veiled, as if obscured by the rising malevolence from the battlefield. The ground, soaked in crimson, seemed to bleed even when dug deep. Marshal Tathnir, his body covered in wounds, swung his axe down with such force that it shattered the earth, claiming the lives of all within its reach. The Ice Maiden, with a mere wave of her staff, summoned a chilling wind, plunging the temperature and causing massive shards of ice to rain down within a 100-meter radius. All within this frozen expanse were encased in frost. The Bat Knight, gravely injured, could no longer join the fray. The Enchantress, with her deer-like body and human face, wielded a long spear, each throw transforming a single trajectory into a sea of blood. Her bewitching magic emanated outward, leaving attackers frozen in their tracks as if spellbound. Black smoke blanketed the sky as the battle raged on. The heavens and earth seemed like a fragile vessel adrift on a vast ocean, battered by relentless waves, on the verge of capsizing and total annihilation. In the desolate forest outside the city, the young girl immortal clenched her teeth, her small hands gripping the hem of Kevin Schuyler's robe tightly. Kevin Schuyler. Brother Tian, why haven't we acted yet? Her trembling voice carried on the cold wind. The Qilin, though outwardly calm, was inwardly uneasy, while the Stone King on its back appeared indifferent to the chaos. Kevin Schuyler's eyes, however, sparkled with sharp determination. The time has come. The soldiers within the stronghold now possess unparalleled combat strength, and I've carefully observed the battle techniques of the enemy's 5 commanders. Inuyasha, go! At that very moment, the royalist forces, consumed by despair, fought with reckless abandon against the invading army. Roar! Hell! 2 deafening growls echoed from within the forest. Suddenly, a stone giant nearly 30 meters tall appeared, accompanied by a mythical Qilin beast, 5 meters long and about 3 meters tall. Their earth-shaking roars dispersed the dark clouds overhead. Every soldier engaged in battle turned their gaze toward them. A suffocating pressure swept across the battlefield like surging tides, enveloping everything. The air was thick with a storm of killing intent. The demon warrior cast a shadow over an entire section of the battlefield, and all eyes were drawn to the towering stone giant. Many soldiers trembled, their legs weak, as a deep, soul-crushing fear gnawed at their fighting spirit. Even the commanders of both sides momentarily froze, their actions halted as they stared at the 2 figures. Kevin Schuyler stood atop the mythical Qilin beast, hovering midair. His posture was upright, his green hair flowing despite the absence of wind, and his expression was solemn. His commanding presence radiated authority as his sharp eyes emitted an intense brilliance. A faint purple glow flickered intermittently across the surface of his body. Boom! As Kevin Schuyler's mental energy surged, an impenetrable golden barrier enveloped him, signifying absolute defense. The golden shield, centered around the holy golden sword, shimmered with streaks of purple lightning dancing across its surface. By the decree of the immortal Heavenly Emperor, traitorous generals will be eradicated, and rebellious ministers will be slain. Today, the heir of the Heavenly Emperor is here. Surrender immediately, or face annihilation without mercy. Hashtag Chapter 21, Great Massacre, Special Slaughter. The voice, slightly immature, yet exuded an authority as thunderous as a roaring storm. The entire battlefield instantly fell silent, a hush blanketed over all, even the horses stilled. The heir of the Heavenly Emperor, it's the heir of the Heavenly Emperor. That divine beast is the mount of the immortal emperor. My heavens, isn't that the legendary demon warrior? And it's descended here? Many soldiers recognized the 2 divine beasts and cried out in astonishment, throwing the scene into chaos. The Wolf King's eyes were filled with confusion. The Heavenly Emperor? Wasn't he supposed to be dead? An heir? Where did this heir come from? Why didn't I know about this? The Twilight Hunter scratched his head, equally puzzled. I may be a little dumb, but I know if we just retreat like this, the boss will surely kill us, he said, throwing up his hands and shouting loudly. Who cares whose descendant he is? Kill him quickly, take over Bitsu City, and go home for the reward. The Soul Phantom was clearly impatient. Exactly. We've already sworn allegiance to His Majesty, the Sorcerer King. Even if the Heavenly Emperor himself appeared, we'd still have to fight. Take Bitsu City. Whoever enters the city first will be rewarded with 1,000 gold pieces and the title of Marquis of 10,000 households. The Wolf King's roar echoed across the land, and the soldiers, who had briefly paused, resumed their frenzy. Whatever they were doing before, they continued doing now. Roar! The Wolf King struck first again, charging straight at the Stone King. Seeking death. A fist as massive as a mountain came crashing down. The Wolf King tilted his body to evade, leaping into the air as his colossal wolf claws shimmered with ominous black energy, poised to strike the Stone King. But suddenly, a figure appeared beside him. A gigantic blade arc slashed upward from below the Wolf King's belly, sending him flying. Despite being a super wolf warrior with 1 foot already in the high-tier realm, currently at the upper mid-tier level, this strike was no easy blow to endure. Although his steel-like wolf fur absorbed part of the impact, a terrifying wound appeared on his abdomen, bleeding profusely. Ugh! The Wolf King growled warily at the slightly youthful figure, his mouth emitting a guttural snarl. As he prepared to act again, Kevin Schuyler smiled faintly. Above the Wolf King's head was the massive fist of the Stone King. Kevin Schuyler immediately became alert. If the Wolf King retreated now, the Stone King's leg behind him would be something he could not withstand. Observing the situation, it was clear the Wolf King had no choice but to roll to the side. Seizing the moment, Kevin Schuyler made his move, predicting the trajectory. Lin Bing spun wildly. La Tornado! Alongside the thunderous fist of the Stone King, Kevin Schuyler's La Tornado was unleashed. But its target wasn't the Wolf King, it was his only escape route. As expected, seeing the massive fist descending, the Wolf King dared not resist. He spun, rolling to the side, only to come face to face with Kevin Schuyler, who launched himself like an arrow loosed from a bow. In his right hand was a swirling purple energy sphere, neither too large nor too small. Boom! Struck in the same spot, the Wolf King let out a painful cry. It didn't end there. As soon as Kevin Schuyler's right hand made contact, his left hand wielding the heaven-born Fong swept the Wolf King off the ground like a broom. Quickly switching the blade to his right hand, Kevin Schuyler stomped hard on the ground. The heaven-born Fong glowed with a dazzling purple light. Wind Spear! Boom! Suspended midair with no foothold, the Wolf King had no choice but to block with his claws. 3 massive blade arcs struck his body. His claws cracked open, his abdomen was split, and his innards spilled out. Clinging to life by a thread, the Wolf King saw the youth before him raise his blade once more. The Wolf King let out a final mournful howl. Faintly, he saw the shadow of the immortal celestial emperor from years past. With a gaze full of longing, he collapsed. Slash! The blade cleaved the Wolf King's gigantic body into 2. Kevin Schuyler landed on the ground, Lin Bing spinning wildly around him. His body was drenched in dark brown blood. Feeling the warmth of the blood, Kevin Schuyler's hands trembled. For the first time, a strange light glimmered in the depths of his eyes. Taking a deep breath, he carefully absorbed the killing intent and etched it into his mind. Suddenly, he turned and walked away. Killing a master for the first time had shifted his state of mind, yet Kevin Schuyler found himself relishing this feeling, the release of the murderous intent buried deep within. Gazing at the 4 powerful figures. In the distance, Kevin Schuyler's eyes gleamed with bloodlust once more. Roar! The Qilin divine beast unleashed a sea of flames, engulfing the sky. The massive blaze incinerated every corner. Soldiers screamed in agony. In this battle, they had no control over their fate. Each spark consumed countless lives. Kevin Schuyler trembled, taking a deep breath and gritting his teeth. With 2 divine beasts aiding him and the enemy's 5 generals weakened after a prolonged battle, their strength was no longer at its peak. This was the perfect opportunity to sharpen his blade. There was no room for hesitation, no chance to let this moment slip by. Let the lives of the world's strongest wash away the ferocious killing intent within this young man. Roar! The colossal body of the Twilight Hunter was trapped within the Qilin's towering flames, unable to move. Kevin Schuyler leaped into the air, lightly stepping on the heads of countless soldiers as if flying, closing the distance. The heaven-born Fong swung mercilessly. Though his hands still trembled and unease lingered in his heart, in this moment, Kevin Schuyler showed no hesitation. Heavenly Emperor's 9 slashes. Without any unnecessary movements, a purple blade light flashed, followed by 9 consecutive strikes slashing towards the Twilight Hunter. Each strike was stronger than the last, each brimming with increasingly heavier killing intent. The final slash was earth-shattering. The Twilight Hunter roared furiously, its massive anchor tearing through the void, creating waves that surged into the sky. However, it was all in vain. It had already consumed too much Kai energy, The previous battle had left it utterly drained. Kevin Schuyler's final strike severed the Twilight Hunter's anchor and cleaved through its body from the shoulder. Blood rained down like a storm, dyeing the battlefield crimson, drenching every soldier in its bloody glow. Kevin Schuyler trembled violently, and Heavenborn Fong emitted a mournful wail. Staring at the weapon in shock, Kevin noticed strange energy fluctuations emanating from it, as though something within his own body was being absorbed by the blade. The trembling in his hands intensified, and the vibrations of Heavenborn Fong grew stronger, seemingly on the verge of becoming uncontrollable. Gritting his teeth, Kevin gripped the blade tightly with both hands, his eyes emitting a visible light as he swung the weapon down, claiming another life. Lives on the battlefield were as insignificant as grass, death reigned mercilessly here. Kevin Schuyler couldn't comprehend why their lives seemed so fragile, nor what gave him the right to take them. As these thoughts consumed him, he became increasingly entranced by the act of killing. His eyes gradually turned red. In the distance, the soul-eating demon, witnessing Kevin Schuyler slaughter 2 more people, spat out the head it had been gnawing on and let out a deafening roar. Its blackened teeth made its maw appear grotesque, while a thick demonic aura radiated from its body. Kevin Schuyler's attention was drawn to the roar, his crimson eyes locking directly onto the soul-eating demon. Ah! Losing all rationality, Kevin's entire being was enveloped in an eerie red glow. His eyes burned a fiery red, releasing tangible beams of light half a meter long. A terrifying killing intent erupted from his body, forming a golden yellow energy sphere. Heavenborn Fong spun with unprecedented speed. Boom! A pillar of light erupted from Kevin Schuyler's position, formed entirely of his overwhelming killing intent. Any soldier who dared approach was instantly crushed by the suffocating force. Without waiting for the soul-eating demon to attack, Kevin Schuyler used teleportation to appear beside it. Heavenborn Fong held louder and wilder, increasingly difficult to control, yet Kevin wielded it to slash out even more powerful crimson blade arcs at unprecedented speed. One strike after another, his movements were lightning fast. From afar, it appeared as though Kevin was casting a massive net, a radiant web formed by the crimson blade arcs. The soul-eating demon roared continuously, its demonic aura surging skyward, but deep down, it was filled with fear. The boy, who had initially been an even match, now became a nightmare. The demon struggled to withstand the bloodthirsty crimson blade arcs. The longer they fought, the more terrified it became, as Kevin's killing intent raged like a storm. The demon's black body endured relentless devastation with each passing second. It could no longer resist the sinister crimson blade arcs, nor could it keep up with Kevin's speed. Its body was riddled with gaping wounds, blood gushing like fountains. Looking at the boy fighting with reckless abandon, the soul-eating demon's heart trembled. It took a step back, forming a hand seal with both hands. Summon, Deathsbane. A massive claw descended from the sky, enveloping the soul-eating demon's right arm. The claw shimmered with an eerie black soul light, with countless skulls and spirits swirling around it, occasionally emitting chilling, mournful cries. At this moment, Kevin Schuyler had already charged forward, his blade like molten fire, descending like a galaxy falling from the heavens. It drew upon the essence of the sun and moon, causing the ground beneath to crack wide open. Kevin swung his blade downward. The soul-eating demon extended its right hand, and the claw suddenly transformed, unleashing an endless stream of black demonic energy. The demon leaped up, forcibly resisting Kevin's attack. However, as Kevin's blade arc made contact with the demon, it split into 2, then 4, and finally countless arcs filled the sky. Kevin wielded Heavenborn Fong with incredible speed, leaving the soul-eating demon utterly defenseless. It saw a sea of blood, a boundless, surging ocean that seemed ready to consume the heavens and earth, swallowing all living things. Kevin's crimson eyes burned with demonic intensity, his green hair standing on end strand by strand. Killing intent swirled around him like a raging storm. At that moment, he resembled a demon king descending upon the world. Heavenborn Fong, emitting a sinister black glow, howled ceaselessly, drawing upon the laws of heaven and earth. The vast energy of the universe surged toward Kevin like tidal waves. The spinning heaven-born Feng grew wilder. Butcher and the Night Stalker fisherman also noticed the situation. The Night Stalker fisherman moved like a phantom through the void, his chilling soul blade resembling a scythe, seemingly aiming to sever Kevin's head. Meanwhile, Butcher opened his blood-filled mouth, his soul hook aimed directly at Kevin. The hook shot through the void with eerie precision, as if intending to tear Kevin apart. Kevin turned his head, his fiery crimson eyes locking onto the two. In that fleeting moment, anyone who met his gaze felt a terrifying illusion, as if the immortal heavenly emperor of ages past had been reborn. Poof! The soul-devouring demon was crushed into countless blade lights. Kevin Schuyler paid no attention to the attacks from the other two, mercilessly slaughtering the soul-devouring demon. At that moment, the Shadow Stalker fishman approached Kevin Schuyler like a specter, his cursed blade slicing across Kevin's neck. Just as it was about to sever Kevin's throat, a blood-red hook shot out from Kevin Schuyler's back, piercing through his abdomen. Kevin's body arched like a bow, pulled toward the butcher. Blood gushed from Kevin Schuyler's mouth as the butcher's blood-soaked maw opened wide, releasing a toxic miasma that spread ominously. Kevin Schuyler roared furiously, forming a hand seal. A golden barrier of light instantly enveloped him, severing the blood-red hook. The butcher was met with the deadly blade lights of heaven-born Feng. Although the butcher reacted quickly, his massive frame hindered him. Despite his mind keeping pace, his body couldn't respond in time. The blade lights slashed through his flesh like a butcher carving meat, nearly cleaving him in half. However, the butcher's life force was astonishing. He struggled to drag his mutilated body, narrowly avoiding the next strike. Realizing the dire situation, the butcher quickly formed a hand seal, activating a spell formation that enveloped him. In an instant, he disappeared from sight. Kevin Schuyler did not pursue the butcher. He had already lost control, his body riddled with wounds. Blood spurted like a fountain from the 2-centimeter gash on his neck. The Shadow Stalker fishman hid in the void, waiting for a chance to strike a fatal blow. In the distance, two divine beasts were rampaging through enemy soldiers in a storm of fury, too distracted to notice what was happening nearby. However, Xiaoyo had been watching Kevin Schuyler intently. Upon seeing him injured, she let out a loud cry and flew toward him with Inuyasha. Her desperate shout pierced through the void, attempting to salvage Kevin Schuyler's lost soul. Inuyasha, noticing ripples in the void, swiped his claws. The space distorted, revealing a peculiar, eye-like object, a literal eyeball. Inuyasha infused it with Kai energy, causing it to radiate brilliant light. The Shadow Stalker fishman, concealed in the void, was instantly exposed. Inuyasha lunged at him. The fishman, clearly unaware that his concealment had been broken, kept his gaze fixed on Kevin Schuyler, searching for an opportunity. Only when Inuyasha's claws closed in did he sense the deadly threat. In a bizarre, unnatural motion, he leaped away, leaving behind a violet-red trail, narrowly evading the attack. Seeing Inuyasha closing in and the demon warrior approaching from afar, the fishman realized he had no chance left. Forming a hand seal, he summoned a spell formation that engulfed him, vanishing without a trace. Kevin Schuyler, still in a frenzied state, continued his slaughter as if intent on annihilating all life under the heavens. Inuyasha stared at him, his eyes flashing with urgency. "This is bad, he's fallen into madness." Inuyasha shouted desperately. Xiaoyo spread her hands and gently waved toward Kevin Schuyler. Instantly, Kevin Schuyler's body was pulled back, though his strength was not sealed. At that moment, his killing intent was still overwhelming. Inuyasha slightly opened his mouth, exhaling a light mist while emitting a faint growl. The moment Kevin Schuyler came into contact with the mist, he immediately calmed down. A golden light radiated from his forehead, and the absolute defensive aura grew even stronger. The red glow in Kevin Schuyler's eyes gradually faded. Heaven-born Feng finally ceased its wailing, and Kevin Schuyler's body returned to a state of calm. His hair fell loosely, draping over his shoulders, as the killing intent dissipated. Kevin Schuyler quietly raised his head. Xiaoyao controlled him midair. Kevin Schuyler turned to look at Xiaoyao, his gaze complex. Xiaoyao's large eyes were now misty with tears, her hands trembling as if struggling greatly. Kevin Schuyler took a deep breath, his movements slowing down. Tong Tian gradually calmed. His abdomen was pierced, and his body bore various other wounds, each painful enough to make his heart tremble violently. Yet, with Xiaoyao present, he believed his life was not in immediate danger. Kevin Schuyler looked down below. The enemy troops were clearly demoralized, but dared not retreat. Kevin Schuyler silently closed his eyes, soothing his injuries, and shouted loudly, "Your commander is dead. Return to the service of the immortal Heavenly Emperor. Surrender, and you shall not be killed." If they fled the battlefield, they would face death upon their return. Surrender was their only option. Kevin Schuyler's commanding voice echoed in the sky, and the battlefield instantly fell silent. Tens of thousands of enemy soldiers gradually stopped moving, staring at the green-haired youth floating silently midair. It was as if they were seeing the Heavenly Emperor himself, so similar. Everyone trembled. Could it be that the Heavenly Emperor of old had returned? Inuyasha, seeing this, held towards the heavens. The demon warrior beat his chest and roared, the sound waves rolling like thunder through the clouds. Tens of thousands of soldiers lowered their weapons. Immediately, all the troops below turned to face Kevin Schuyler, kneeling on one knee. "Long live the Heavenly Emperor! Glory to the Heavenly Emperor!" Someone shouted this first, and instantly, tens of thousands of soldiers echoed in unison, "Long live the Heavenly Emperor! Glory to the Heavenly Emperor!" The sound waves reverberated across Bitsu, shaking the earth for miles around. Kevin Schuyler's expression was complicated. He turned to look at Xiaoyao again, his face fierce, as if to say, "Annoying Xiaoyao. It's all your fault, making me inherit this title. Now look at this mess, I almost succumbed to darkness." He pointed to his abdomen, as if to say, "See this? Such a big hole, I can't even eat anymore." Xiaoyao, seeing Kevin Schuyler's wounds, seemed on the verge of tears, but still pouted and turned her head aside. Her jade-like face displayed a mischievous expression, her clever eyes darting around, as if to say, "You already agreed with me, so it's too late to back out now." Kevin Schuyler shook his head, pretending to be angry, bearing a single fong, as if to say, "Tomorrow, make sure your old man gives me extra benefits." Little Niu chuckled, tears still lingering at the corners of her eyes. Her two sharp canine teeth were visible as she let out a soft hum, as if to say, "If you have the guts, go ask him yourself. I don't care." Kevin Schuyler remained silent, turned his head, and gazed at the masses below. A regal aura emanated from him. Silently, Kevin Schuyler etched this feeling into his memory and addressed those below, "Everyone, please rise. My master, the immortal Heavenly Emperor, has ascended to the war god realm and shattered the void, disappearing to an unknown destination. Now, carrying out my master's command to quell the chaos, I ask for your support." After speaking, Little Niu waved her hands gently, and Kevin Schuyler was instantly carried to her side. Little Niu hurriedly tore fabric to bandage Kevin Schuyler's wounds. At that moment, Kevin Schuyler collapsed, unable to hold on any longer, leaning against the mane of Inuyasha and falling into a deep sleep. Before drifting off, he tugged at one of Little Niu's braids and murmured, "I'm entrusting my life to you, heal me quickly." Little Niu wrinkled her nose, brushed Kevin Schuyler's hand aside without a word, and began forming seals with her hands. A strange green light emanated as she started the healing process. #### Chapter 22, Too Young. Part 1. The battle for Bis City concluded. The rebellious army of 100,000 was utterly defeated, leaving no way back. Among their 5 generals, 3 perished, and 2 were gravely injured. Bis City was preserved. At the throne of the Enchanted King was furious, but chose not to punish the 2 surviving generals. Instead, he rewarded them generously, much to their astonishment. The Queen of Sorrow stood atop a mountain, gazing far into the distance, toward the frozen throne. In the sky, there seemed to be a young boy with a bright smile, speaking in a voice both tender and resolute. "No, sister, I believe true peace exists everywhere. True peace resides within the heart. As long as everyone strives for peace, the people of this world will understand one another and step together into an era of harmony. Sister, I am still too young, but if there is peace, I will grasp it tightly and protect it with my life. Look, sister, I will bring true peace to this land." The Queen of Suffering smiled faintly, as if the vow made yesterday would become reality today. On the youthful face of the Witch King was a look as if everything was under control, as though all events were within their grasp. An heir of unknown origin, a celestial emperor's steed, a demon warrior, 3 of you should repent, for you have delayed the arrival of peace, causing the peace that had already begun to return to its starting point. The Witch King's deep eyes, like the vast ocean, gazed into the void and spoke softly. "King, what should be the next step?" asked the summoner. The Witch King seemed thoughtful, glancing at the summoner, the Queen of Suffering, the witch, and the infernal overlord standing nearby, then smiled faintly. "Oh, great peace, let your steps once again begin to move swiftly." Without answering the summoner's question, the Witch King instead uttered these words. Unfolding the massive map behind them, the 4 generals, beside them, smiled respectfully, forming a line and standing before the Witch King. Order: Damien Blackwell, Blood Fiend, Half-Blood Mammoth Demon, Origin of Agony, Subterranean Assassin, 5 commanders leading an army of 100,000 troops as the vanguard to advance straight into the central region of Dadak. The summoner received the command token, bowed in salute, and turned to leave. Order: the Ace Mage Corps will lead 100,000 troops to ambush in the forest area along the mid-lane wilderness of the Royalist faction. Be ready to provide reinforcements. The Queen of Agony glanced around, accepted the command token, and turned to leave. Order: establish a blood sacrifice and summon the 3 ancient gods. The witch priest respectfully bowed, took the command token, and turned to leave. Order: Lord of the Underworld, lead 50,000 elite soldiers to eliminate all neutral creatures in the wilderness area of the Royalist faction, clearing the path for the main army. Understood. The Lord of the Underworld responded loudly, received the command token, and turned to leave. The Witch King turned back. "Beth? Is it Beth? Then I shall go personally to meet and see just how capable your successor is." The Grand Hall of the Royal Council Hall, Dadak. Your Honor, General Bone Skull King was engaged in battle on the upper road, along the Yangtze River, but was ambushed by enemy forces. Currently, he has fallen in battle. The crowd erupted in shock. Bone Skull King, the foremost general under the Royalist faction, had perished? The seer slammed the table and stood up, his fury seemingly capable of consuming everyone present. At that moment, the silent warlock beside him burst into hearty laughter, a carefree and innocent laugh, as though he had just heard the funniest joke. Everyone looked at him as though he were a fool. "Strategist, have you overworked yourself? Have you lost your mind? How can you laugh at news like this?" This was the thought running through everyone's mind. Strategist? What are you laughing at? The earth-shaking divine ox, simple and curious, was the first to ask. Indeed, strategist, could this somehow be part of your plan? The towering figure of the apocalypse envoy emerged. Everyone, stay calm. Tell me anyone else has died, and I might believe it. But Bone Skull King? I don't buy it. Sure enough, at that moment, intense magical fluctuations rippled through the air, and a distant messenger arrived with urgent news. Your Honor, General Bone Skull King has led his forces back to the battlefield. Currently, the front lines have crossed the Yangtze River, and fortifications are being established along its banks. The Divine Talisman stronghold was ambushed by the enemy, but they were repelled after a fierce battle led by Illusory Spearhead General and Lightning Phantom General, who slew the enemy commander, the Merman Guardian, and gravely injured the Ghoul Beast commander. Good. Everyone cheered, but at that moment, the giant demon war general presented a battle report, the central route, Elven City, had fallen. General Windwalker was killed in action, and now the Witch King was leading hundreds of thousands of troops to march directly through Elven City, heading straight for the heart of Dardak. The atmosphere, which had just eased, suddenly turned grave. The giant demon war general, his entire body covered in wounds, stood there. His armor was completely destroyed, his battle axe chipped and broken, his cloak tattered. Yet his fighting spirit remained undiminished, and the icy killing intent in his eyes seemed to drop the temperature in the Royal Council Hall by several degrees. Relay the command, give proper burials to the soldiers who retreated from Elven City, and deploy medical teams to treat General Giant Demon. The seer stared intently at the giant demon war general, who returned the gaze with bloodshot eyes, as if searching for an answer. At that moment, a bell rang from the tallest tower in Dardak. Dong! The sound echoed throughout the city. Everyone who heard it froze in place. Millions of eyes turned toward the great bell, and the entire city seemed paralyzed, motionless under the weight of the sound. The seer suddenly stood up, walked to the window, and stared out with a terrifying glint in his eyes. All the officials in the Royal Council Hall perked up their ears, afraid to miss a single detail. Even the giant demon war general focused all his attention on listening to the bell. The sound of a war horn resonated, like the growl of an ancient divine beast. The sound shook the entire city, reverberating in the hearts of every person. Rolling black clouds seemed to pause and listen. The howling wind roared, as if cheering. This was the Celestial Emperor bell, forged personally by His Majesty, the immortal Celestial Emperor. Only the secret arts of the Celestial Emperor could make it ring. And now, it had sounded. What could this mean? Moreover, the war horn was the signal used in the immortal domain to announce extraordinary military achievements. Only generals who had achieved great victories could be honored by its sound. And now, it echoed throughout the city. What could this signify? Finally, everyone heard a voice, powerful and commanding, unmatched in its dominance, like the roar of an ancient titan. The heir of the immortal Celestial Emperor has descended. The mount of the immortal Celestial Emperor, the great Night Stalker, has arrived. The supreme ruler of the immortal domain, the demon warrior, has descended. Silence. Utter silence. The vast city was devoid of any sound, not even a whisper. Everyone remained frozen in place, as if they hadn't fully comprehended what they had just heard. The heir of the Celestial Emperor is unleashing a massacre. Boom. The Royal Council Hall trembled, the city of Dadak trembled, the royalist faction trembled, the heavens and earth trembled. No one could believe it, yet the bell still echoed, the horn still resounded. Everything bore witness to what had just occurred. Report, battle news from Jade Fortress. At the final moment of the siege, the heir of His Majesty the Celestial Emperor descended, the mount of His Majesty the Celestial Emperor descended, the Supreme Overlord Demon Warrior descended, rescuing Jade Fortress. The battle at Jade Fortress has now ended, our forces have achieved a great victory, and the enemy's remnants have surrendered. Everyone in the Royal Council Hall was overwhelmed with emotion. It had been so long since they last heard the bell toll, so long since they last heard the horn sound. The seer's eyes gleamed brightly, even the usually composed silent sorcerer now wore an expression of astonishment and shock. Many were still unable to recover from the news. Relay my command, the seer shouted loudly, snapping everyone back to reality. All eyes turned toward the seer. All commanders are to march 10 miles out of the city, to welcome the heir of the Celestial Emperor. Boom. The seer was utterly overwhelmed, completely shaken, and in this moment used a voice louder than ever before to issue the order. Though the silent sorcerer's face was also filled with astonishment, he quickly regained his composure, his gaze flickering as he sank into thought. As for the others, there was no need to mention it, the Royal Council Hall was soon completely empty. The city of Dadak erupted in cheers. Everyone placed their hands over their hearts in prayer, gazing up at the sky, beseeching the Celestial Emperor to bring peace. All of this, Kevin Schuyler naturally did not know. Even he himself did not expect that the so-called Heavenly Emperor's successor would be so important. Hashtag Chapter 23, Too Young. Part 2. Jade Fortress, Resting Chamber. Kevin Schuyler finally regained consciousness. If the last time was a suspicion, this time was a confirmation. As soon as he woke up, a porcelain doll-like face appeared before his eyes, with two long, playful braids. At this moment, the little girl's face was filled with astonishment and excitement. Kevin Schuyler. Heavenly, big brother, you're too unbelievable. Such severe injuries, and yet, when I was treating you, they were almost healed already. Watching the little girl struggle to finish her sentence, Kevin Schuyler gently stroked her face, his expression full of affection. As expected, there's something strange about my body, he thought. Kevin Schuyler examined his internal state. Two purple orbs, like miniature suns, floated in his dantian. Waves of purple radiance surged through his body like a boundless sea. How could he not know these were the source? At this moment, they seemed to be vying for credit, emitting vibrant purple light. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but feel curious. With such power, could it mean any injury he sustained would heal rapidly? Subordinates greet the heir of the Heavenly Emperor. It was only then Kevin Schuyler noticed that aside from the little girl by his bed, several figures were kneeling on one knee not far away. Startled, Kevin Schuyler quickly got up and helped the generals to their feet. After some inquiries, he learned that the leader was Marshal Tatnir, followed by Fire Maiden, Water Crystal Maiden, Storm Spirit, Enchantress, and a heavily injured Bat Knight who had also come to pay his respects despite his condition. Kevin Schuyler carefully observed the generals. His eyes lit up upon seeing Fire Maiden, his gaze lingering momentarily. Then, when he looked at Water Crystal Maiden, his eyes brightened even more. Marshal Tatnir held a massive spiked mace, exuding an aura of regal authority. His bronze armor gleamed, enhancing his commanding presence. Storm Spirit, with a panda-like form, had electric sparks flickering all over its body, occasionally releasing terrifying bursts of electrical energy. Fire Maiden donned a provocative sorceress cloak, her ample chest boldly exposed, her red lips slightly parted, exuding a seductive charm with eyes that seemed to sparkle with electricity. Yet, around her, terrifying waves of fire elemental magic fluctuated, as if a mere gesture from her could summon endless flames. Water Crystal Maiden wore a hooded cloak, holding the icy staff of divinity. Her delicate features remained emotionless, and Kevin Schuyler felt a chilling sensation just by looking at her. The contrasting magical auras of these two made everyone uneasy. Enchantress was even more astonishing to Kevin Schuyler. She was half human, half deer, her lower body that of a deer, while her upper body was that of a woman, clad in a thin green veil. Her face bore the breathtaking beauty of a goddess, but the spear in her hand exuded an eerie, ghostly energy swirling around its tip. Kevin Schuyler had no doubt about the spear's devastating power. Meanwhile, Bat Knight wore peculiar armor, seemingly unconventional. Despite his severe injuries, he had not yet been treated. Please, everyone, rise. Quickly, take me to the War Command Hall. Marshal Tatnir suddenly raised his head, a glimmer of joy flashing in his eyes. He promptly stood, respectfully saluted, and extended a hand. This way, please. Kevin Schuyler strode out, and as he passed by Fire Maiden, his gaze couldn't help but flicker. His head turned uncontrollably toward her, and his eyes began to wander absent-mindedly. The young girl walking behind him noticed this and immediately grew furious, lifting her foot to kick him. Kevin Schuyler nearly stumbled and fell flat on the ground, leaving those behind utterly baffled. Jade Fortress Command Hall. Kevin Schuyler stood before the massive map, seemingly lost in thought. He turned around and looked at the commander seated comfortably. His expression was more serious than ever, showing no sign of hesitation, despite this being his first time commanding a battle. It was as if he was born for this, exuding confidence. Meanwhile, Commander Tatnir's eyes sparkled with delight. Truly worthy of being the heir of the Heavenly Emperor, possessing not only formidable combat prowess but also a natural talent for leadership. This might have been Tafner's thoughts, but the others in the room were less convinced. Crystal Maiden's expression shifted subtly, her thoughts clear. Is this a joke? Judging by that face, he looks like he's barely weaned. Commanding a battle? Really? Fire Maiden, on the other hand, appeared indifferent, gazing at Kevin Schuyler with a dreamy, love-struck look. Others in the room silently wondered what kind of person this young man truly was. A loud roar echoed from outside, the growl of the Inuyasha beast breaking the silence. Finally, Kevin Schuyler spoke. Jade Fortress must be abandoned. Everyone was stunned. How absurd, after all the effort to secure it, now he was suggesting they give it up. Even Tafner looked skeptical. Unfazed, Kevin Schuyler raised his hand and said, "First, I invite everyone to voice the doubts in their hearts." All of them were seasoned warriors, not the reckless type, and at this moment, they were deep in thought. Moreover, the successor of the Celestial Emperor carried a certain level of authority, primarily due to the immense prestige of the immortal Celestial Emperor. Kevin Schuyler, the impostor, for the moment, made everyone hesitant to act rashly. Seeing this, Kevin Schuyler spoke again. In military discussions, any suggestion or opinion is innocent. Everyone, feel free to speak up. The current situation concerns the foundation of the Celestial Emperor's legacy, so I hope everyone will give their utmost effort. Finally, the beautiful and alluring Fire Maiden spoke up. "Excuse me, how should I address you?" As soon as she finished speaking, Sartre shouted, "Fire Maiden, how insolent!" Being scolded by Sartre, the Fire Maiden immediately turned her head away, in compliance. Kevin Schuyler quickly interjected, "Commander, please don't mind. My name is Kevin Schuyler. Although I am the successor of the Celestial Emperor, from now on, you can simply call me by my name." Sartre was about to speak, but suddenly realized he himself didn't know how to address Kevin, so he stayed silent. Kevin Schuyler returned to the main topic and said, "Grand Magus, please continue with your statement." Seeing the commander rendered speechless, the Fire Maiden smiled joyfully and said, "The Jade Fortress is the last line of defense for the lower route of Dardoch City. If we abandon it, the Witch King can directly send troops to attack Dardoch. At that point, with Dardoch being assaulted on 3 fronts, the situation would become even more unfavorable." Everyone nodded in agreement, and Kevin Schuyler quickly grasped the point. Well said. Once the defense line is breached, Dardoch City will face a 3-front assault, which indeed poses a significant problem. But I want to ask you, Fire Maiden, if the Witch King personally leads the attack, do you think just the few of us here can hold him off? Not to mention whether Dardoch City has reinforcements or not. Assuming they do, can they deploy reinforcements in time before the Witch King arrives? And even if the reinforcements arrive, can we ultimately hold the line? If we all perish here, what will the outcome be? Our forces will weaken, the Jade Fortress will still fall. Without us, the Witch King can directly lead his victorious army and simultaneously attack Dardoch from the central route. At that point, although we won't face a 3-front assault, the Witch King can still strike straight through the central route, destroying our ice throne. At that time, even if we have tens of thousands of troops remaining on the upper and lower routes, what meaning would it hold? The King of Dark Sorcery, rumored to have broken through to the supreme level under the command of His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor, has likely stepped into the realm of Battle King. His 10,000-strong elite army advances with unstoppable momentum. I'm not trying to boost the enemy's morale or diminish our own, but the Jade Fortress's defenses consist of a mere 30 magical defense towers, and our total forces are no more than 150,000, half of whom are surrendered soldiers. The Fire Maiden remained silent. Kevin Schuyler continued, "The main forces of the King of Dark Sorcery recently waged a massive battle at the central front. The central strategic point there is likely to be drawn toward us at the lower front. The King of Dark Sorcery is known for his swift marches and personal involvement in all matters. It's highly probable he will personally lead his troops to the Jade Fortress. Once he arrives, no one will be able to stop him. The fall of Jade Fortress will be inevitable. But our retreat is not a simple withdrawal. Even if I were to order a retreat, I have promised everyone that we will eliminate half of the King of Dark Sorcery's forces. The crowd exchanged glances, uncertain whether to trust this young man who still seemed wet behind the ears. Retreating while eliminating half of the King of Dark Sorcery's forces? How could that even be possible? Ahem, seeing everyone staring at him, Marshal Tarsal finally stood up and said, "The heir of the Heavenly Emperor represents His Majesty. How can we not follow his orders?" Seeing their leader had spoken, the defenders of Jade Fortress resigned themselves to their fate. If the fortress was doomed to fall, what more could they do? The happiest person beside him was none other than little Nyo. She acted as if she had stumbled upon a treasure, her eyes glowing brightly as she looked at Kevin Schuyler. Her gaze toward him had indeed not been misplaced, and she felt a sense of relief in her heart. Kevin Schuyler took a deep breath, knowing that as a newcomer, despite having the backing of the old master, he would still need to establish his own credibility. Inside the room, Kevin Schuyler gazed into the distance. The Great War of the human race had been raging for several months now, a battle between two races that allowed no retreat, no mercy, and no sentiment. He had promised Hannah that he would seek aid from the Elven clan, but now he found himself delayed within the Immortal clan. Could he leverage the strength of the Immortal clan to save the human race? The current state of the Immortal clan was deeply concerning. Kevin Schuyler, though not lacking in confidence, was well aware of his limitations. He had never encountered the Witch King, but judging by the latter's actions, the man was incredibly meticulous. Although many within the royalist faction labeled him a traitor, his power was undeniable. To have built such a vast empire, how could he be an ordinary individual? The problem was that no flaws in his character had yet been uncovered. Ruthless? No, he cared for his people like his own children, and his rewards and punishments were always fair. Paranoid? Not quite, at times, he even acted purely on instinct. Kevin Schuyler picked up his tea and shook his head, realizing the stark difference between himself and the Witch King. Compared to such a figure, he was still inexperienced. Moreover, with the Witch King commanding an army of millions and enjoying such high prestige, how could someone like Kevin Schuyler, who lacked real authority, compete? Even as the heir to the Heavenly Emperor, how many would truly place their trust in him? Would the current rulers entrust him with power? It wasn't because they were foolish, but rather because Kevin Schuyler was simply too young. He let out a sigh, feeling the battle spirit coursing through his veins, a deep yearning to employ strategy in warfare, etched into the very core of his being. When faced with the sight of thousands upon thousands of soldiers and horses, Kevin Schuyler often felt an overwhelming urge to weep. Every time he stepped onto the battlefield, his soul would tremble instinctively. Why was this? Was it a legacy of his bloodline? Could it be that in a past life, he had been a leader of war? Chapter 24, Slaying the Infernal Overlord. How can I make everyone trust me? Only by achieving accomplishments. Thinking about this, Kevin Schuyler's hand tightened around the teacup, his handsome brows furrowed, and a ruthlessness beyond his age emerged. Kevin Schuyler approached Marshal Tatnil and shared his withdrawal plan. Marshal Tatnil, who already trusted Kevin deeply, became even more excited after hearing the plan and immediately ordered it to be executed. Kevin Schuyler picked up the document on the table in front of him. On the document, it read, "Top secret, plan to withdraw from Jade Fortress and eliminate half of the Dark Sorcerer King's forces. Convey the order from the Heavenly Emperor's successor and Marshal Tatnil, all troops retreat, all civilians evacuate, and proceed at full speed to Dotak City." Kevin Schuyler knew his credibility wasn't sufficient, so he borrowed Marshal Tatnil's authority to issue the order. However, Marshal Tatnil insisted on announcing it as a command from the Heavenly Emperor's successor. A blood-red warhorse galloped swiftly from the direction of Dotak City. Everyone recognized it immediately. It was a battle report from Dotak City. The fiery red mane flew wildly in the wind, like a crimson cloud dancing in the sky, drawing everyone's attention. The Great Seer requests the Heavenly Emperor's successor to return to Dotak City immediately. The entire army is waiting. The coarse voice rang out. Kevin Schuyler remained calm and stared straight ahead. Returning now? Impossible. The plan was in motion. If he left, how much success would remain? Was the Dark Sorcerer King an ordinary opponent? Under Kevin Schuyler's insistence, Marshal Tat Nil led all the civilians and most of the soldiers out of Jade Fortress, leaving behind only 4 generals and a small number of troops. Jade Fortress became a city in name only. Marshal Tat Nil, unwilling to delay, quickly organized formations and began the retreat, knowing that the presence of civilians would slow their pace significantly. Kevin Schuyler watched the last group of civilians disappear over the horizon before finally turning around. His eyes shone with unwavering determination, and an unparalleled aura of authority emanated from his soul. This was the majesty of a seasoned emperor. Even little Neo couldn't understand why his once kind and approachable brother, Kevin Schuyler, suddenly felt so distant. Kevin Schuyler looked directly at the 4 generals, his expression stern, his voice firmer than ever. For generals, I know I am still young and lack sufficient experience. It's natural for you to think I don't have the capability to command troops. But today, Kevin Schuyler drew the heaven-born Fong, its black blade emanating an eerie glow. I want to use my life to implore you to trust me wholeheartedly. Though my life may not be precious, I am willing to swear on it. Even if my strategy has flaws, I am prepared to be the first to bear the consequences with my life. At this critical moment, if the 4 generals still harbored doubts, disaster could strike. Thus, Kevin Schuyler resolved to take a firm stand to secure their trust. Regardless of whether you truly believe in me or not, I've already staked my life. Can you still refuse to follow me? The captivating eyes of the Fire Maiden widened in disbelief as she gazed at the young man before her. He truly carried the aura of the Celestial Emperor. His life not precious? Ridiculous. If you die, how could we possibly return alive to face the Prophet? The risk of leaving the Celestial Emperor's heir behind while the army retreated was already immense. Now, there's nothing more to say. The 4 generals spoke in unison, we swear loyalty unto death. Kevin Schuyler exhaled a sigh of relief. Looking at the distant sky, the Ice Phoenix throne radiated an overwhelming killing intent, engulfing the heavens and earth in one direction, as countless wills of living beings converged in that area. In the central route of the royal army, the Witch King personally led the grand army, preparing to set off. The mage battalion included witch sorcerers, necromancers, oblivion mages, summoners, and dark sorcerers. The warrior battalion consisted of soul reapers, night stalkers, butchers, spirit guardians, and brood mothers. A massive force of 500,000 troops surged forward like a mighty dragon, advancing straight toward the city of Dard. Kevin Schuyler glanced at the battle report submitted by his subordinates, revealing a sinister smile, yet a strong sense of unease surged within him. Would the Witch King fall into the trap? Could they truly deal a decisive blow to the enemy's morale? On a long slope in the wild forest, Kevin Schuyler narrowed his eyes. The slope stretched nearly 10,000 meters, with a width of 100 meters. Furthermore, it was flanked by dense mountain forests, leaving no other viable paths. Relay the order, bring all defensive materials from the city here. Report, the rebel general, Lord of the Abyss, is leading a force of 50,000 from the lower route to launch a surprise attack. Their target is the neutral faction within the wild forest. How many generals are under his command? Kevin Schuyler urgently asked. Only the Lord of the Abyss himself. Upon hearing this, Kevin Schuyler smirked. Alone? Humph, I'll take that head. Little Neo, what's the deal with that escape formation they've used several times before? Kevin Schuyler pondered, recalling the formation used by the Butcher and his group during critical moments. Little Neo, who had always followed closely beside Kevin Schuyler, puffed her cheeks in a pout, seemingly upset that Kevin hadn't paid her much attention. After all, she was still a child, always craving someone to play with her. Yet, given the current circumstances, she tilted her small head and slowly explained. That's called Return Scroll. You just need to channel Chi energy into the scroll, and within seconds, you can teleport to a corresponding altar. The effective range is quite large. Kevin Schuyler fell into deep thought. If they managed to severely wound the enemy, only for them to use the return scroll to escape, wouldn't all their efforts be in vain? That wouldn't do. Is there a way to prevent the enemy from using the return to city scroll? Of course, it's possible. You just need combat skills with restriction capabilities, like the Flame Pillar from Sister Fire Maiden or the Ice Freeze from Sister Ice Maiden. Kevin Schuyler thought to himself, it seemed like he didn't have any combat skills in this area. Is there a way to interrupt it without using combat skills? The little girl seemed stumped by the question, clutching the hem of her clothes as she pondered deeply. Kevin Schuyler smiled gently. A 5-year-old girl, though knowledgeable beyond her age, thanks to the Heavenly Emperor Jade Pendant, still had her limits when it came to specialized fields. Seeing her struggle to find an answer, he didn't blame her and lightly patted her head. Well then, the Ice Maiden, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke up. I've heard of a magic staff called the Wind Magic Staff, which can blow enemies into the air when they cast spells, thereby interrupting them. There's also the Staff of Divinity known as the Evil Scythe, which can turn enemies into small sheep, temporarily sealing their combat abilities and interrupting them. There are many other magical artifacts capable of doing this as well. This cold and beautiful woman rarely spoke, but when she did, her words were meticulous and precise. Kevin Schuyler nodded quietly. If that were the case, he could only rely on the restrictive skills of Fire Maiden and Ice Maiden. In the wild forest, the Infernal Overlord led an army of 50,000, preparing to sweep through all opposing forces. After several battles, effortlessly annihilating a few small tribes, the Infernal Overlord reached a tropical rainforest. Known for his high efficiency, decisive ruthlessness, and authenticity, he led his troops with unmatched vigor. Wielding the Frost of Sorrow, a top-tier weapon in the domain of the undead, exuding an icy aura, it was a weapon of chilling attributes. In combat, it could unleash supreme frost, freezing weaker enemies and slowing the attack and movement speed of even those on par with him. Once targeted by the Frost of Sorrow, few survived. Under the command of the Witch King, the Infernal Overlord earned numerous illustrious achievements, slaying countless foes and becoming one of the great generals. As the Infernal Overlord advanced without a hint of hesitation, a flash of lightning appeared ahead, seemingly ignoring him as it shot past. A battle-hardened warrior, the Infernal Overlord's combat experience and reaction speed were unmatched. He immediately recognized the enemy as the Storm Spirit and dismounted to pursue. Moving like lightning, his eyes gleamed with bloodlust. Who would have thought hunting wild creatures would also bring such a prize? Truly an unexpected gain, he sneered. The Infernal Overlord chased relentlessly, leaving his soldiers far behind. Eventually, near a basin, he spotted the Storm Spirit sitting cross-legged on the ground, seemingly meditating with its back turned, entirely unguarded. The Infernal Overlord grinned, baring his teeth. Raising the Frost of Sorrow, he concealed his killing intent and approached slowly. A warrior of his caliber didn't need to resort to ambushes, as he could openly defeat his foes. However, everyone knew of the Storm Spirit's unparalleled agility, darting and weaving unpredictably, making it nearly impossible to catch. Thus, the Infernal Overlord decided to end it with a single strike. When the Infernal Overlord was within 20 meters of the Storm Spirit, the Frost of Sorrow was raised high, and his killing intent surged outward. The ground beneath him cracked as he leaped into the air, slashing downward to cleave the Storm Spirit in two. The Storm Spirit, unable to resist, turned just in time to be frozen by the Frost of Sorrow, its body cruelly split apart. Fresh blood gushed forth like a fountain. Laughing heartily, the Infernal Overlord prepared to sever the enemy commander's head. At that moment, a youthful yet resolute voice rang out, "One." Boom! A lightning bolt struck from the sky, and in an instant, another Storm Spirit appeared before him. A phantom materialized, leaving the Infernal Overlord unable to react. How could there now be another storm spirit? 2. The voice continued as a blazing pillar of fire descended from the heavens, engulfing the infernal overlord. A sultry figure emerged, Fire Maiden, launching her fiery assault. Bah! A massive spear trailing a long tail of fire shot forward. All of this happened in an instant, as Kevin Schuyler's 1, 2, 3 also finished in a flash. The Hell Overlord, after all, was a battle-hardened general. He quickly calmed down, realizing that the storm spirit he had slain was a fake and that he was now surrounded. Without hesitation, he raised his right hand, and a flash of white light appeared. A shield similar to Kevin Schuyler's absolute defense materialized around him. However, his shield did not fully envelop him but seemed to be composed of countless iron rings spinning rapidly, creating the illusion of a barrier. Additionally, as he infused his internal energy into the Sorrow of Frost, a terrifying chill spread out instantly. He was ready for battle. The storm spirit struck with a palm, but the Sorrow of Frost easily blocked it. Yet, in the moment of contact, the Hell Overlord's entire body became paralyzed, movement hindered, as countless electric currents surged across him. At that very moment, the fire pillar reappeared, further immobilizing him. The spear shot forward, and the Hell Overlord's pupils contracted as he narrowly avoided a fatal wound. The storm spirit's phantom descended upon him, and this time, the Hell Overlord could not evade. Boom! The Hell Overlord was struck, his body engulfed in a storm of electricity and fire. The Sorrow of Frost glowed brilliantly, releasing an endless icy aura that struck the storm spirit. Though the attack landed, it caused only minor harm. Meanwhile, the storm spirit's hands moved continuously, sending countless lightning bolts into the Hell Overlord's body, devouring his Chi energy. The enchantress, noticing he had dodged the first strike, furrowed her delicate brows and formed seals with her hands. Several spears, now even brighter and more menacing, hurtled toward the Hell Overlord with deadly precision. Desperately dodging, he still could not escape unscathed. His right chest was pierced through, the spear emerging from his back, exposing white bone, a truly horrifying sight. The Hell Overlord roared in fury, and the Sorrow of Frost blazed with unprecedented power, seemingly sensing its master's peril. It unleashed a freezing force that covered 100 meters around in ice, instantly extinguishing the Fire Maiden's pillar of fire. Without looking back, the Hell Overlord fled, leaping into the air. While airborne, he formed seals with both hands, and a magic circle appeared, enveloping him, return scroll. The Hell Overlord glanced down at the astonished faces of his enemies below. For today, he had narrowly escaped death, but he vowed revenge in the future, his sinister gaze flashing ominously. Unfortunately for him, escape was not destined to be. Mid-air, visible droplets of water began to coalesce around him, and in an instant, the Hell Overlord was frozen solid. A massive block of ice formed, shattering the magic circle and halting his escape. Not far from the forest, the Crystal Maiden raised the Staff of Divinity with one hand, forming seals with the other. Aya! The Hell Overlord screamed. Could it be that today he would truly meet his end here? I refuse to accept this. The Hell Lord screamed as a black mist instantly rose from his body, an eerie and gloomy smoke that enveloped him in an instant. Boom! The ice block exploded. Storm Spirit, Fire Maiden, and Enchantress exchanged glances, halting their attacks and allowing the Hell Lord to flee swiftly into the narrow path ahead, disappearing in the blink of an eye. As the strange black mist gradually dissipated, the three looked at each other and smiled knowingly. The Hell Lord turned back to see no one pursuing him. Believing he had escaped danger, he let out a cold laugh. Humph, my mist is none other than the legendary combat technique, Reflective Radiance. It can transform all attacks into Chi energy for me to absorb. I bet you wouldn't dare attack me anymore. As the mist cleared, the Hell Lord's figure reappeared, his body riddled with wounds, barely able to hold himself up. Just then, a silhouette appeared ahead, causing the Hell Lord to panic and attempt to flee again. But upon closer inspection, it was merely a 5- or 6-year-old girl. Humph, trying to scare me. Seeing that his path was blocked by a mere child, the Hell Lord couldn't help but scoff in disdain. "Villain, stop right there." The little girl pointed her finger at the Hell Lord, pouting as if ready to challenge him. "Ha ha ha ha." The Hell Lord burst into laughter at her stammering words. But before his laughter could finish, it abruptly stopped. He realized he was now suspended in midair. The little girl had stretched out her arms and was attempting to lift the Hell Lord. Her small hands trembled, her neat white teeth clenched tightly, clearly struggling. "Ah, how dare you treat me like this? You're courting death." The Hell Lord raised his ice sorrow blade, its chilling aura palpable, and swung it at the girl. Upon seeing this, the girl's mouth formed an O shape, and she quickly covered her eyes with her hands. The Hell Lord immediately plummeted from the air. As the ground drew closer and the seemingly harmless girl remained in sight, he wanted to cry. Normally, such a fall wouldn't faze him, but now his body was severely injured, and the gaping wound on his chest was still bleeding. However, just as he hit the ground, a blade light emerged from the earth. "Ah!" The Hell Lord twisted his body, narrowly dodging the attack. Truly a seasoned warrior, he remained unshaken in the face of danger, reacting almost instinctively. But what came next? Kevin Schuyler emerged from the ground, activating his absolute golden defense. A golden figure shot forth like an arrow from a bow. The Hell Lord, having no choice, raised his blade to block. Boom! Wind spear. Kevin Schuyler gave the enemy no chance to catch their breath. After striking the Hell Overlord with a single slash, sending him flying, Kevin didn't even wait for him to hit the ground before instantly teleporting to his side. 3 massive blade arcs tore through the air. The Hell Overlord's eyes widened in disbelief. Splurt, splurt. Kevin Schuyler landed gracefully, sheathing the heaven-born Fong. Everything returned to silence, as if nothing had ever happened. After severing the Hell Overlord's head, Kevin approached the young girl to help her up. However, the girl, as though seeing a harbinger of doom, screamed loudly and bolted away. Kevin chuckled softly and made an effort to chase after her. Hashtag Chapter 25, The Battle of Kings, Part 1. At the foot of the long slope, smoke and fire filled the air as the 500,000-strong army of the Dark Sorcerer King began their ascent. Though called a slope, it could almost be considered flat land due to its sheer length, stretching so far that the end was invisible to the naked eye. The Dark Sorcerer King gazed at the dragon-like slope, his brows furrowed, exuding an overwhelming aura of murderous intent. His striking, godlike features appeared as if sculpted by the Creator himself, sharp, resolute contours and a powerful build. Even from miles away, his regal presence dominated the heavens, radiating brilliance. Who will take the vanguard? At the top of the slope, Kevin Schuyler and his comrades had already set up an ambush. A scout returned to report, and Kevin Schuyler promptly asked. "Reporting, my lord, it's General Damian Blackwell." Damian Blackwell, a legendary figure, one of the 3 demon kings, and the leader of the Dark Sorcerer King's elite guard. It was said that in the darkness of night, no one could rival him. Not only did he possess terrifying combat prowess, but his speed was unmatched. His signature battle technique, Void Slash, had claimed countless powerful foes. Moreover, as a demon king by birth, his mere presence could strike fear into enemies, rendering them unable to cast magic. When enraged, he could turn daylight into night, shrouding the sky with thick black clouds, summoning darkness to engulf the earth, and unleashing immense power. Kevin Schuyler studied the information in his hands, sinking into deep concern. It seems he's a formidable opponent. It won't be easy to seize the opportunity to take him down. Summoning black clouds, could it be related to light manipulation? Without delay, Kevin Schuyler sought detailed information about Damian Blackwell from the other generals. After all, first-hand experience from the generals was far more reliable and comprehensive than the documents he held. A guttural roar from a strange creature echoed in the distance. The vanguard of the Dark Sorcerer King's forces had drawn near, with scouting parties seemingly about to ascend the slope. Kevin Schuyler quickly ordered everyone to proceed according to the plan. A young girl insisted on following Kevin Schuyler, but he paid no attention to her pouting lips. Grabbing her twin braids, he tossed her toward Fire Maiden and Ice Maiden. The girl clutched her braids tightly, her tiny fists waving in protest, her little nose wrinkling as she gritted her teeth in frustration. Yet Kevin Schuyler remained indifferent. The first reconnaissance team appeared, and everyone anxiously looked ahead. It was late afternoon, and the sky was beginning to darken, a situation highly advantageous for Damien Blackwell, something Kevin Schuyler had not anticipated in his plans. A strange sound, boom, echoed through the air as a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, piercing straight through the bodies of the reconnaissance team. The soldiers, caught off guard, didn't even have time to react before their heads were severed. The storm spirit's speed was truly unmatched. With just 2 swift passes, the 12-member squad was completely annihilated. Silence returned to the slope. In the distance, Damien Blackwell sat astride his undead King-class warhorse. His muscular frame, seemingly forged from steel, exuded explosive power with every sinew. On his back were wings, decayed and corroded, as if burned by sulfuric acid, with remnants of flesh still clinging to them. This grotesque sight made Damien Blackwell, already terrifying, appear even more blood-soaked. His face was covered in scars, so much so that one might mistake him for wearing a mask. At that moment, noticing faint flashes of lightning on the slope, the soldiers nearby murmured among themselves, speculating that there might be activity ahead, possibly an enemy presence. Damien Blackwell silenced them with a single slap, sending one of the soldiers flying. He snarled, "Behind us is His Majesty, the Lich King. Keep your mouth shut. Who in their right mind would dare block His Majesty's path?" Immediately, everyone fell silent, their expressions grave. They fixed their eyes straight ahead and marched forward in disciplined strides. After all, who would dare to court death? The 5 advance teams were silently wiped out by the storm spirit, leaving not even a trace of their remains. This left the storm spirit somewhat frustrated, as it darted back and forth, each time dragging along over a dozen corpses. It was truly exhausting. Watching the vanguard troops below gradually approach, Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Woo-woo, an eerie horn sound resonated. Suddenly, thousands of soldiers emerged on the once quiet slope. They were transporting massive boulders, large wooden logs meant for fortress defense, and iron spheres weighing thousands of pounds. In an instant, the slope resembled a 3-dimensional exhibition, with colossal objects being moved into position. In the central army, the Lich King sat on his throne, eyes tightly shut. A vague sense of foreboding loomed over him. Boom. As Damien Blackwell's army approached the summit, a shadowy figure appeared like a phantom, hovering above everyone in an instant. 3 purple blade arcs tore through the ground. Damien Blackwell roared in fury, stomping forcefully on his warhorse, which immediately shattered into pieces. 2 massive demonic fists clashed midair with Kevin Schuyler's heavenborn Fong. The domineering force of the punches collided fiercely with Kevin Schuyler, who swiftly disengaged after a few exchanges and darted to the side. However, Damien Blackwell was relentless, pursuing without hesitation. As Kevin Schuyler led Damien Blackwell away, the summit trembled violently, shaking the entire ground. Enormous objects weighing thousands of pounds were pushed downhill, rolling faster and faster along the steep slope. Tens of thousands of soldiers felt the tremors. The Witch King opened his eyes, filled with astonishment. This was the first time someone dared to obstruct his path. Interesting, a hint of amusement flickered across the Witch King's handsome face. Then he closed his eyes again, as if nothing had happened. The vanguard descended into chaos as colossal objects tumbled down like a raging flood from the summit, gaining incredible speed. Those at the rear were still unaware of what was happening, while those at the front were crushed into pulp. Occasionally, figures were flung into the air. The gloomy sky and the long slope now resembled a conveyor belt, delivering massive boulders into the crowd. Agonizing screams echoed endlessly, filling the air. The ground quaked as the Witch King's army was thrown into disarray. Those who understood the situation had no place to hide, some leaping into the abyss, while the fortunate few sought refuge in the nearby forest. The majority, however, were swallowed by the mass of rocks, crushed, flung aside, and obliterated. Blood flowed like rivers, trickling down the slope. Initially, it moved slowly, but soon it surged violently. Lives were snuffed out one after another. Strangely, a layer of black mist appeared within the blood, a highly flammable liquid for those who could recognize it. The Witch King was known for his strict discipline over his troops. After sacrificing tens of thousands of soldiers, the remaining forces finally managed to form a wall of corpses. Once the boulders at the front were blocked, those behind lost their momentum. Meanwhile, four formidable generals from the Central Army flew into action, their overwhelming auras exploding outward. Soldiers used the bodies to build a barricade, eventually halting the avalanche of destruction. At that very moment, a phoenix's cry resounded across the sky. A fire phoenix soared from the summit. Normally, such a creature wouldn't be particularly alarming, but for some reason, wherever the phoenix passed, flames erupted. In an instant, a fiery trail spanning thousands of meters sealed the path forward. Fortunately, no more massive objects rolled down, preventing further devastating casualties. As the troops sighed in relief and prepared to advance, a few immensely powerful warriors took action. A half-man, half-elephant beast known as the Fierce Demon charged forward, smashing aside large boulders with ease. However, the sheer volume of debris required significant effort to clear, delaying progress. The vanguard had effectively been annihilated. Meanwhile, the Witch King remained seated calmly, as if entirely oblivious to the chaos unfolding around him. At this moment, atop the steep slope, Kevin Schuyler and Damian Blackwell were locked in an intense battle. Damian Blackwell unleashed powerful punches, cold and fierce, sweeping across the area with an almost invincible force. Kevin Schuyler swung his blade, creating countless slashes, his agile movements making it impossible for Damian Blackwell's punches to land. Heavenborn Fong grew stronger with each strike, the black blade emitting a pleasing hum as the fight against Damian Blackwell quickly escalated into a brutal clash. Kevin Schuyler's heart surged with fierce determination. This was truly a battle of titans. Unyielding blade energy clashed against icy punches, leaving neither side with a clear advantage. Although Damian Blackwell possessed superior strength, Kevin Schuyler's unpredictable agility allowed him to evade danger. Whenever cornered, he used teleportation techniques to suddenly appear behind his opponent, delivering sharp, precise strikes. Several times, Damian Blackwell narrowly avoided being cut. Despite the gap of an entire level in power, Kevin Schuyler managed to hold his ground against Damian Blackwell. Lin Bing surged furiously within him, growing fiercer with every exchange, while Fong Thien swiftly analyzed and tracked every movement of his adversary. Each time Damian Blackwell made a move, Kevin Schuyler predicted it and countered. Damian Blackwell grew increasingly alarmed as the fight progressed, and Kevin Schuyler began to gain the upper hand. Each time Damian Blackwell attempted an attack, Kevin Schuyler intercepted it before it could fully manifest, seamlessly blending offense and defense. Damian Blackwell refused to believe it. "I am an entire level above you, yet I still can't defeat you." Boom. Kevin Schuyler blocked another direct attack, his hands trembling. Despite his growing proficiency in battle, the undeniable power difference between them was evident, as Damian Blackwell's strength remained formidable. Blades filled the sky as Kevin Schuyler's movements remained strikingly simple, each strike devoid of pattern, focusing solely on defense when needed and exploiting any weakness in his opponent's stance. Damian Blackwell's fists glowed brightly, surging with Kai energy, which roared like a storm. The two had exchanged nearly 1,000 blows, without a decisive outcome. Though both had expended significant Kai energy, each slash grew sharper, each punch more forceful. Damian Blackwell was on the verge of madness. After such prolonged combat, he had yet to land a single hit on Kevin Schuyler. His Kai energy reserves were depleting rapidly, and reinforcements had not arrived. Glancing at the sky, he resolved to end the fight swiftly. Boom, as the two sides separated, Damien Blackwell swiftly formed a hand seal, spitting out a small black orb from his mouth. He let out a sinister laugh, pushing his hands forward as the orb shattered instantly, transforming into countless rays of light. As these rays ascended into the sky, Damien Blackwell continued forming seals. The dark clouds above rapidly converged at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although it was already dusk, the black clouds blotted out every trace of light, plunging the world into pitch darkness. Kevin Schuyler, having anticipated his move, refused to give him the time to complete the seals. He immediately teleported, unleashing a frenzied assault with the heaven-born Fong. Though Damien Blackwell retreated, his hands never ceased their movements. Frustrated, Kevin Schuyler swung his blade, releasing a wind spear slash. This time, Damien Blackwell couldn't evade. Puffing out his chest, he took the full brunt of the attack. Boom, Damien Blackwell was sent flying, but he managed to finish his seals. The world turned utterly dark, devoid of light, shrouded in shadows. Kevin Schuyler quickly crouched down, activating Heavenly Sight to pinpoint Damien Blackwell's location. Despite the gaping wound on his chest from the slash, Damien Blackwell showed no anger. Instead, he laughed. Black mist began to emanate from his body, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared before Kevin Schuyler, throwing a punch. Though Kevin dodged, the force of the punch sent shockwaves that staggered him. Just as he tried to regain his footing, Damien Blackwell pursued relentlessly. A shadow streaked through the air at terrifying speed, each strike growing fiercer. Boom! A punch landed, distorting the very air. Even with teleportation, Kevin Schuyler couldn't fully avoid it and was struck in the chest. The sound of breaking bones echoed clearly. Void collapse. Damien Blackwell formed another seal, and an invisible, strange vortex instantly enveloped Kevin Schuyler. His body suddenly became unbearably heavy, plummeting to the ground and creating a massive crater. The pain made him clench his teeth so hard that blood seeped from his gums. At that moment, within the central army of the Witch King, roar. Roar. Two deafening roars echoed, this time laced with Chi energy. Visible ripples of sound waves spread through the air, like ripples across water. The two sound waves merged into a larger, more fearsome wave. Countless sound blades materialized, scattering the black clouds above. The sound blades descended like rain, and the dark clouds gradually dissipated. Though it was late afternoon, sunlight once again illuminated the land. Damien Blackwell couldn't believe what was unfolding before him. As the sunlight returned, the black mist surrounding him vanished. Kevin Schuyler tilted his head back, roaring to the heavens, forcing himself to stand. Gripping the heaven-born Fong, he charged at Damien Blackwell with unrelenting ferocity. Heavenly Emperor's 9 slashes. Hashtag Chapter 26, The Battle of the King, Part 2. Boom. Damien Blackwell raised his fist, narrowly blocking the first slash. Just as he cried out in pain from the impact on his fist, the second slash came crashing down. Forced to use his other hand to block, Damien let out a pained scream, ah. His arm was nearly severed, exposing stark white bone, blood gushing like a fountain. The third slash, and what made Damien even more desperate, was how each slash followed the last, each one stronger and fiercer. Finally, Damien had no choice but to give up. With the last remnants of Chi energy in his body, he hastily fled. But Kevin Schuyler teleported, reappearing right in front of him, delivering an even more devastating slash. Damien turned just in time to narrowly dodge, though his right arm, along with part of his shoulder, was severed. Gritting his teeth, his eyes bloodshot with fury, Damien seemed on the verge of madness. Yet Kevin Schuyler ignored his rage, swinging horizontally with another slash. Damien leapt into the air, narrowly evading it. Enraged, Kevin unleashed the last of his golden Chi energy, instantly delivering 3 consecutive slashes. Damien nearly cursed aloud, "Do you even have a cooldown time?" Boom, the final slash came down with terrifying force. As the strike landed, Kevin Schuyler collapsed. In that moment, it felt as if the heavens would crack and the earth would shatter. The blade's aura descended like a divine dragon, suppressing everything in its path. Damien Blackwell, unable to escape, gazed at the dazzling final strike and ultimately abandoned resistance. Boom, a legendary figure, Damien Blackwell, fell. At that moment, the Witch King could no longer keep his composure, for the mythical demon warrior had fused with the Inugami, the mount of the celestial emperor. The divine beast, the silver Kirin Inugami, possessed unparalleled speed, while the Stone King demon warrior wielded immense strength. If these two entities merged, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Witch King, staring at the two beastly figures above, roared furiously, spewing forth a column of light that surged against the heavens. However, he was ultimately a step too late. The mysterious fused creature effortlessly deflected the attack. At this moment, the sky radiated with brilliance, so blinding that everyone except the Witch King was forced to shut their eyes. The Witch King, however, saw it clearly. A silver Kirin divine beast appeared, its entire body covered in shimmering silver scales. Yet its eyes were crystalline, belonging to the Stone King, exuding overwhelming demonic energy. Lightning flashed incessantly across the sky. The supreme pressure blanketed heaven and earth. Roar! The fused divine beast let out a deafening roar toward the beings below. The sound alone shook the ground, instantly killing the Witch King's troops stationed nearby. Over 1,000 soldiers perished without so much as a scream, vanishing from existence. Furious, the Witch King's handsome face twisted into a savage expression. He soared into the sky like a meteor, but in reverse, from the ground to the heavens, his glowing fist, enveloped in black Kai energy, hurtling toward the fused divine beast. Death spiral. I'll take your life. The Witch King's deep, menacing voice was no less terrifying than the beast's roar. His attack even managed to counter the beast's sonic waves. Seeing the Witch King's all-out assault, the divine beast dared not underestimate him. It halted mid-air, its demonic energy surging, so thick it seemed to engulf the heavens and earth. Its silver claws swung out, growing larger with the wind, extending to 100 meters as they met the Witch King's charge. Witch King, you seek death. A thunderous roar erupted from the divine beast. Boom! A massive shockwave obliterated the nearby small hills. Tens of thousands of soldiers below were torn apart by the impact, all desperately fleeing to a safer distance. The clash of two monarchs unleashed a destructive power that could annihilate the heavens and earth. In the skies, a man and a beast, two radiant figures, fought relentlessly to the death. The killing Beast King resembled an ancient demon god, its claws tearing through the void, accompanied by bursts of thunder. Yet, the Witch Demon King was no less formidable, showing no fear. His fists, like the hands of a deity, shattered the demonic aura as he met the killing Beast King head-on. During the battle, the killing Beast King deliberately descended closer to the ground, aiming to exploit their duel to obliterate the Witch Demon King's army. Though the Witch Demon King saw through this scheme, he was powerless to stop it. As a fellow monarch, he had no initiative in the battle. Helplessly, he watched his soldiers below disintegrate into nothingness under the shockwaves of their clash. The murderous intent in his eyes grew more intense as he roared toward the heavens, raising both hands skyward. Suddenly, massive waves surged in the sky, and countless meteors, with blazing tails hurtled toward the killing Beast King. The Witch Demon King, endowed with extraordinary talent and trained by the undying Heavenly Emperor, was nearing the realm of a battle king. Now ruling half an empire, his power was unfathomable. Summoning massive meteors as his weapon, their immense size and scorching heat wreaked havoc before even landing. The ground, like a tranquil lake shattered by a stone, cracked with fissures spanning 1,000 meters in radius. Countless soldiers lost all hope, apart from a few on the outskirts who managed to escape. The rest perished in this pseudo-battle king confrontation. The killing Beast King roared ferociously. The undying Heavenly Emperor had once befriended a demon king, whose strength defied the heavens, but was nearly destroyed by divine tribulation. Using a secret technique, the Heavenly Emperor saved his life, splitting him into two entities. One became the dog Yiksha, serving as the Emperor's mount out of gratitude, and the other became the Stone Man King, reigning supreme in the forests of the undying domain. Now reunited into one, their combined power was unimaginable. He raised his head and let out a roar that echoed across the 9 heavens, shaking both heaven and earth. The ground split apart, and countless beams of light shot skyward from the cracks. Each beam transformed into a dragon of light, with innumerable luminous dragons soaring to confront the meteors. The witch demon king swung his arms, destroying the approaching light dragons, but their overwhelming number surpassed him and collided with the meteors. The entire world seemed on the brink of collapse as countless explosions echoed across the skies. The witch demon king roared once more, defying the heavens as he charged upward, engaging the beast in close combat again.